Did I go live? I can never tell. I guess so. Nice. Good evening, Kathy. How are you? Hi, Jess. Oh, I guess that's Jessica. I'm terrible at the letters. I'm just terrible at them. Pip, how are you? Hello. Dano? Not sure. How's everybody doing? I'm gonna try to cast something today from CTV. I've been running all kinds of practices and hopefully I can pull it off. I want to play that Gilbo interview that he had with Vashi. I don't know how long it is. I didn't watch it yet because I want to react, but I'll wait for some more people to pop in. Maybe nobody's going to come in. I've had a lot of bad luck with my live stream, if I'm honest with you. Hey, Donnie, how are you? Ever since they told me that if I go live, I'll get a 30% increase in all kinds of stuff, but I got a 30% decrease, I guess. All right, I have to do more, I suppose. Well, I'm going to play it. I hope it doesn't bother you to watch it again. I haven't seen it because I was waiting to have something to practice with, and I was like, well, what better to practice with than Stephen Gilbo begging CTV to take his side? A man who sat in the House of Commons and slammed just about everything and everybody that was, on the English side of the aisle. And now he's talking English on CTV. He must have some desperation going through his mind. I think the Liberal Party's imploding. I just uploaded something about the Mark Miller thing with the C9. Now, I can't figure out, I don't know the end goal of that C9 from the Carney perspective. I don't understand what they hope to accomplish. It could be that they're hoping to gain back some of the Jewish vote. What, are you kidding me? What does that even mean? See, OBS is just annoying. Hold on a minute. I got to try and figure out why they all of a sudden think that I'm running at 1082. Like, that makes very little sense. Who would do that? Yeah, I don't know. There's always something with this program, I noticed. Nobody. I don't know where. I am literally getting a warning that somehow in here I'm running this resolution at 1920 by 1082. 82, not 80, 82. And it's like, oh no, throwing the whole system right off. So I have to try and figure out how come they have made up this magical make-believe number somehow. And that, like, I know it's not my camera, and I know it's not my monitor. So it's very strange. It could be in the settings of the OBS, I guess. But I if it is, I don't know where it's at. Everything is closed out to me now that I'm in the middle of something. Yeah, it all says 1080. I guess it's possible that it's the encoder. But I can't change it. They won't let me change it. So I don't know why I'm getting... that kind of stuff irritates me. Because it's like, wait a second. How is that possible? Open widget error. but you won't let me change the resolution. So I don't get it. How is everybody seeing my video? Does it look good in the resolution? Or is everything all messed up? Because I'm getting some sort of stupidness that somehow I put 2 extra megapixels on it, which makes no sense. It won't let me have access to any of it though. Like I looked, now that I'm streaming, the OBS is closed out. It's all grayed out. Like a whole host of it is grayed out. Camera says it's right. Devault says it's right. And then if I go into settings, it just says, like on the stream, it's all gray. They won't let me touch any of it. But there's nothing different than the way that it's normally done. I didn't change much. I changed the encoder to match my video card. Maybe the keyframe is wrong. I don't know. It says it's supposed to be set to auto, but I changed it to 2. That kind of stuff irritates me, gets on my last nerve if I'm completely candid with you. Did I just close it out? I did close it out. That's kind of bugging me. And it says open the widget, and all it says is you need to change the video resolution to 1920 to support this configuration. But nowhere in here is it telling me how I can change the configuration. It won't let me. I'm just aggravated. If it looks bad, just let me know, and I will leave and come back. They're insistent on running this gigantic yellow bar across my screen. My voice sounds deeper. I played around with the machine a little bit. I have a deep voice. I have the kind of voice that, rumbles or whatever. That's why I switched to this microphone, because I wanted that to be put across on screen. I didn't think it was coming across in the other settings. I mean, that microphone is good. I didn't mind it. It's just that this one is supposed to be configured correctly. And if I'm going to buy the machine to do it, I might as well do it right. I want to succeed. I'm not having much success lately, I'll be honest with you, but that's, I guess, the ebb and flow of these kinds of things. All right. Well, I didn't know if I don't know, like I don't have as much experience with these things as some people because I haven't taken the time. I've decided now to go at it pretty full time, so I'm going to have to be doing more and more. And I suppose ever since I decided to go full time, that's when it decided to go bad on me. That's the story of my life. But I get it now. I see what's happened. Because my monitor is going out. The one I'm putting it out to is at 1440, and that might be throwing the entire thing right off. I'll just wait a couple of more minutes to see if more people come in, and then I want to play this interview. I haven't watched it. I know that Northern Perspective did a thing on it, like on this Guilbeault interview. I have been running around for, I don't even know now. I can't quite remember. Thanks, Pip. I appreciate that. And because I'm trying to get situated where I can do this full time, but when you get when you're a one-man show, it's amazing how fast the day slips by. Yeah, I promise. So I haven't seen it, but I do like to make fun of Steven Guilbeault, and I think that Steven Guilbeault's move was pretty bad for Mark Carney. I figured out why he picked Mark Miller, though. At least I figured that part out. If you watch my latest video, you'll see what they did in the C9 committee. It was pretty bad, pretty blatant, disgusting kind of maneuver by the Liberal government. I just think that Carney is robbing from Peter to pay Paul. Like, he's doing nothing but buying time, and he's trying to keep his Ontario caucus is the only thing he's got left. So it's pretty funny to watch it implode on him. And all the while, what I think people need to realize is he doesn't care one way or the other. All he wants is his bank account. The people that he really wants to keep happy work for Brookfield. He doesn't care about what happens to the rest of us. He doesn't care what he leaves behind. You can tell because look at the mess he made in England, and that doesn't bother him at all. He brags about how good he did over there. And I just want to hear what Guilbeault has to say. I just think it's significant that he has decided to go on Vassy all of a sudden. He never goes on the news, and all of a sudden there he is, right? Which means he must be feeling some kind of slight, or he wants to make somebody pay for making him have to resign. I'm not sure. Maybe he feels that people are still out there caring about the environment. I mean, I don't have any problem caring about the environment. I just don't believe that we should care about the environment to the point where we all have to go hungry and start living in mud huts like we, back in the Stone Ages or something. There's got to be a happy medium. And that's why you don't hear me complain about the carbon capture, because I think that's just a great solution to shut them all up. Once you have it, they can't say anything. It's funny that the biggest country in the world with carbon capture currently is Norway. And every time the Liberal government talks about a model they want to follow, they talk about Norway. So, all right, fine. We'll put this system in place. It's just a little bit of science. See, the thing is that they've been using the same principles and concept to give us clean coal, right? They just, instead of capturing it and putting it into a pipe, they shoot extra molecules into it as it going out those big stacks you see, and those molecules bond and it changes it from sulfur monoxide to dioxide or something, and it makes it a little healthier on the environment. And they have washing systems and they have all kinds of things when you look at these coal burning systems. So if you want to dig out tons and tons of coal and all of a sudden try to tell me that I got to do without electricity or a car because Stephen Guilbeault thinks I should somehow ride rollerblades to the grocery store in January, I think, nope, I don't agree with you at all. So the idea that he was so obstinate and now he's going to be in the back corner of the caucus makes me laugh. So I just want to hear what he has to say to try to cover himself. Oh, sorry guys, I don't have my glasses on. I'm not very good at this either, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm getting better. I improve every week. I just, one hungry kid is one too many. I agree with you on that. Well, I know carbon capture, who cares? But at the same time, who cares, right? Like if it shuts them up, I have a scheme in my mind where we start to give out greenhouses to like the north, and the greenhouses will need, excuse me, like in Iceland, how they grow bananas inside of that greenhouse that they have from the captured steam that they get from the lava. They grow bananas. That's how warm they can keep it in there. And I'm like, so if we got all this carbon and we need it for plants, it seems to me that one of the simplest ways to solve food insecurity up north is to just give everybody greenhouses. Just ship them up 1,000 greenhouses. Who cares? Just let them have it. Grow tomatoes, grow carrots, grow it all. And when your yields are low, here's some free carbon dioxide that you can pump into the greenhouse and everybody gets food. Everybody gets the good food. Because up north, they eat a lot of crap because that stuff is light and it travels cheaper, right? So they got soda and potato chips out the wazoo, not so much with the oranges and the tomatoes. So if to get the whole system up and running, if it shuts up the crazy people, then I'm fine with it. Like I don't see the big deal. I know it's not necessarily something that is required. However, it is enough to make them have no more argument, right? They can't say, all the carbon is going up into the air and therefore we're all horrible people. In fact, the carbon is not. It's going back into the ground where it was for however many years and sitting inside the oil. And so can you please go away because I'm busy? Like that kind of thing. And then they can start to complain about something else. I don't care what it is. Just leave me out of it. Like I'm tired of these guys. Just look at what they've done to our country. Just look at the state of this country and ask yourself if that's something that we should allow. These are the people that we want to be in charge of stuff. Stephen Guilbeault and De Bruzen. Excuse me. I mean, they're lunatics. Pip is asking me, when do you usually do your live streams? I keep missing them. This is the time that I have selected right now And we did that kind of by committee because we know that Thursday was a good day. Friday's not so great. We know Northern Perspective's out on Sunday. And I thought, well, I could do Sunday earlier, and I'm going to do more. But I am so, what's the word I'm looking for? Such a rookie at it that first one went out, it was terrible. Nobody could hear me. And then I actually lost a lot of people off that stream. And then I figured out I got this machine. So that's fancy. I like this machine, actually. And this will help me when I go to do podcasting, like when I do interviews and stuff. So I'm trying to expand. I'm trying to get moving further up the road. And so Thursday night, it's the time that I selected. Though I don't know, like, would 8 o'clock Eastern be better than 9 o'clock Eastern? I wonder that people in Newfoundland or Nova Scotia are up pretty late right now. I was thinking about 8 o'clock because then it's, it's closer to everyone's bedtime, as they say. However, to get back to your question, typically right now I go at 9 o'clock, and I had put up one of those, soon it's coming soon and all that stuff. But then I found that I was getting all kinds of conflicts between launching, and maybe I just didn't do it right. I mean, that's an entire possibility that I screwed it up is assumed. Let's just let's be straightforward. I know that I come across as being warm and fuzzy, but I screw things up all the time. That's because, I'm a human. Anyway, I hope you guys are liking the streams. I know that some people are not, but you know what? It's a process, and I am gone now that I'm into this full time. There's no turning back, really. Not really. So, okay, so this will be the first time that I've ever tried to stream something live, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to screw it up, but I'm going to try it. So first I could click this one, and then I click this one, and then I unclick this one. And then I should be able to go with this one. Open. Oh, I don't want to show you the commercials. I don't want to get dinged for that. Holy moly. Okay.
And now introducing new CeraVe anti-dandruff hair care.
Did you guys see those commercials? You're in Newfoundland, John? Hey, thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. Yep, you saw the commercials? Oh, you're still seeing the commercials? Or it ran up a second ago? I shouldn't be running now, should it? Did I screw this up? No, it should be okay. I don't know what I'm doing. Just bear in mind that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so now I should be able to pull it off now that the commercials have stopped here. I'm just trying to figure it out on my other monitor. All right, let's see if I can do this right this time. Okay, so tell me, does everybody see Vashi on the screen? Nobody sees Vashi on the screen. Oh, okay, good. All right. So I'm going to be watching it over there, and I'm going to be listening through these things. And I haven't seen it yet. If you've watched it on Northern Perspective, then, well, I apologize. But this is a, what do you call it? They're a blind review for me.
Since quitting cabinet over last week's federal energy
Is it loud enough?
Alberta, a deal that would
give me a one if it's loud enough.
Clean energy regulations in exchange for the province negotiating an increased industrial carbon price, all in pursuit of a new bitumen pipeline to the Pacific. Something Mr. Guilbeault said he couldn't back, calling the agreement a quote serious mistake. But he has decided to stay in the Liberal caucus, and Mr. Guilbeault is with us live in studio right now. Hi there, good to see you. Thank you very much for making the time.
My pleasure, Vashi.
Have you had any regrets since your decision?
No, I've not.
Why not?
It's a tough decision. I mean, as a cabinet minister, you have a responsibility to tell your prime minister what you feel is the right thing or the wrong thing to do. And if you disagree with a policy or a decision by the government in our parliamentary system, then as a cabinet minister, your only recourse is to leave. And this is what I did.
So I had read a story, and maybe it was wrong, but it seemed, well placed the night before you quit, essentially saying, a source close to you was saying that you were going to remain in cabinet because you felt you could have more influence, essentially, over the direction of climate policy or what was to come than outside of cabinet. Less than 24 hours later, you quit. What changed in that period?
Just before he says that, I want to say two things. One, thank you, Pip. Gave $10 and a thumbs up. Is it just me, or has Vashi lost a lot of weight? I don't know how much, but a lot.
I mean, from the first moment I saw a draft of the agreement, the memorandum of understanding between the federal government and Alberta, I voiced my my strong opposition, and I told people, I told those people who were with me that I understood that me opposing this would have some consequences, i.e. me leaving cabinet. And from that day on, Tuesday, Wednesday, tried to work like, are there changes that could be made to the agreement? But by then it was pretty baked in, and the changes that were made were largely cosmetic and didn't change the nature of the agreement. Like I felt, and I feel, we left a lot on the table for not getting a lot in return. This idea that we have to abandon our clean electricity regulation that will help us clean up our electricity grid across the country for decades to come, in exchange for Alberta putting a better price on pollution. They already have to do that because of the federal pricing system. So we're not getting anything in return. Alberta's not giving Canadians a better deal out of that. I have supported the Pathways project to capture carbon and store it in the...
Mark Carney needed, oh my, I am loud. Mark Carney needed that environment, the electricity to be cleared, because he wants to capitalize on the AI systems, and they drain an enormous amount of electricity.
Ground for many years, but people have to understand that it's not a magic bullet. It will help reduce pollution from the oil sands sector by about 12%. It's not 50%, certainly not 100%. It's 12%. And 12% is not nothing, but it will still make oil sands oil one of the most carbon intensive in the world. Like right now, it's about 10 times more pollution intensive than oil that's produced in Newfoundland, for example. So it's going to be slightly better, but it'll be nowhere near what's produced even in other parts of Canada, let alone the North Sea or elsewhere in the world.
The grand bargain and all that you just said, we put...
See, the North Sea is where Norway gets the gas. North Sea is Norway. They get all of their oil, which they're like, I think, the world's 5th or 6th largest producer, but they have an enormous amount of money because of it. Like they have like a $7 trillion, they're in the black, $7 trillion. It's ridiculous. That's how come they all have electric cars. The government bought everybody one. And that's what he's talking about, the North Sea, with the carbon capture.
To your colleagues, including the person who succeeded you in this position in the days in the wake of your exit, on multiple occasions, in great detail, like how the thesis that they seem to be putting forward is the increase, whatever we're able to negotiate in the form of an increase to the industrial price on carbon, will mitigate the impact of the rollback of these other policies. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, not with the current agreement. To mitigate the losses of measures we're willing to leave on the table in order to get this agreement with Alberta, the price on pollution would have to be almost 3 times as high as what is currently being proposed. So there's an Environment Canada estimates that to get to the same result in terms of reduction of pollution just using industrial carbon pricing and taking clean electricity regulation out of the equation, you'd have to have a price on pollution of about $400 a ton. And we're talking right now about $130 a ton. So, I mean, the math doesn't add up. And frankly, I think that my government needs to be honest with Canadians. With the rollbacks that we've seen over the past few months on different climate change measures that have been adopted over the years by me and some of my predecessors, it is impossible to see how we achieve our 2030 targets. And we knew it was going to be difficult. When I was minister,
I don't care about your 2030 targets. Not even a little bit do I care about your 2030 targets. I care about the fact that currently in 2025, people are going hungry and homeless and have nowhere to live and can't afford to pay for gas and can't afford to buy food. That I care about. Your 2030 targets about some, Canada being one of the lowest producers of carbon already on the earth. And I'm not really worried about your 2030 targets there, Mr. Guilbeault. And it's not your government lying to Canadians. It's Carney lied to your government. You better take it up with but you guys decided that you can't vote out your leader because you're far left and fanatics. Thank you, Pip, for the 5 memberships.
When I've had this conversation, we knew it was going to be challenging. It's impossible now. And I think we need to come clean. We need to tell Canadians it won't work. We won't get there. And the Prime Minister, he's the Prime Minister. If he wants another strategy, he wants another approach, he can do that. But we also have to tell Canadians what's the new plan and what does that plan lead us to. And right now, even achieving net zero, so carbon neutrality by 2050, it is very hard for me to see how we get there with what has been announced so far.
So you think even that target is in jeopardy now?
Yes. Yes.
He definitely
Did you
was.
convey this at any point to the Prime Minister? Like, was there, not to say that you would disclose all the details, but like, has there been a frank conversation about this between you and the Prime Minister specifically?
Last week, I've had a couple of conversations with the Prime Minister, and they were very honest and frank and respectful. Where I told them many of the things that I'm telling you now, and where eventually I told them that I was no longer the person to be able to help him continue support his agenda on this issue. Now, why stay in caucus? Why stay?
You beat me to the punch, right? Because, and I'll frame the question if you don't mind, because I think a lot of Canadians watching would ask that question. If you don't feel like you can defend, on principle, essentially, you have to resign from cabinet because of the agenda that they're pursuing. How can you stay in the government? Period.
Well, I have a profound disagreement with the Prime Minister on how he and his team want to continue moving forward on climate change. And as I said, I don't see the plan. I don't see the math right now. And maybe they can prove me wrong in the coming months. That being said, I still think that the best person to serve Canadians and to help us, to guide us through those difficult times we're going through is Mark Carney. Without Prime Minister...
First of all, I would like to thank Lytle for $10. He's communist. Too bad he doesn't follow the real independent science of CO2 and the world history of climate change. It's nothing but a tax scheme. It's obviously something that Mark Carney thought he was going to put money in his pocket. He wrote a book about it. I have that book. Then he decided that carbon capture was a better way to make money once he secured all of the oil pipelines in North America and in the Western Hemisphere. The 3 largest pipelines, one in Canada, one in the United States, and one in Brazil, are all owned by Brookfield. The one in Brazil and the one in the United States is owned by Brookfield outright. 7, like in Canada, there's 7 different ones, but those 2 are owned by them outright 100%. Now they want to branch off into the carbon capture so that they can try to make all of the gas that you're buying more expensive because of the investment that they have to put into the carbon capture. No matter any of that, I in no way, shape, or form think Mark Carney is the guy to get us there, despite what Stephen Guilbeault is trying to convince us of.
Carney, we would not have had the historic investment in the arts and culture that was in the last budget. We certainly wouldn't have measures that continue to support Canadians like childcare, like dental care. The Conservative Party of Canada have said time and time again that they would get rid of those measures. These measures are helping people.
The child care program is a disaster. It is not helping people. There are people right now who are not having children because they just simply cannot get the child care. And the health care is billions of dollars, or the dental care, is billions of dollars in the current budget. But the child care is a fiasco. I've done a dive into it.
Like thousands of dollars back in the pockets of Canadians. So
why do something, pardon the interruption, why do something so politically damaging to the Prime Minister in removing yourself from cabinet? Why not stay around the table and fight for the things that you're describing tonight?
I mean, I've tried to do that with as much tact as I could. I didn't leave the room throwing grenades around and accusing people of this and that. I think I've been very respectful of the Prime Minister and the government, but I felt that I owed it to him, to my colleagues, and to my constituent to be true to myself and to be able to look myself in the mirror. Like, I don't know, Vassy, how I would have been able to say with a straight face that this is an agreement that I can support. Now, I support the Prime Minister's intention of making sure that all Canadians feel they have a place in the Federation, but we played in that movie before. We bought a pipeline. We announced that before the 2019 election, and we lost all our seats in Alberta and Saskatchewan in the 2019 election.
But maybe because it wasn't about the seats, like, how is it okay to buy that pipeline but not build another one? Like, you stood by that Prime Minister then.
Actually, I never supported that pipeline.
You didn't, but you still stayed in cabinet.
No, I wasn't in cabinet when that decision was made. And when I ran in 2019, I specifically said that I disagreed with the pipeline, but I agreed with many of the other things that the Prime Minister of the time, Prime Minister Trudeau, was doing, specifically on climate change and nature. And as you know, politics is about compromise. In a country of 40 million people, you know you're not going to win all your battles, but at some point you have to draw a line in the sand and say this is a place where I can't go, and respectfully say that I have to leave cabinet.
Do you think that you can remain in like you plan to remain? Like, do you plan to run in the next election, for example, under the Liberal banner? Like, do you or are you seriously considering your future outside of just cabinet because of this?
I plan to stay a member of the Liberal caucus and to continue play an active role on these issues that are important to me, certainly the environment, climate change, nature, culture as well. I was culture minister twice.
All of those things, excuse me, all of those things, and not once is he worried about homelessness, not once is he worried about hunger, not once is he worried about inner city problems, not once, like, you know what I mean? Like, this guy represents a riding that's on the island of Montreal. There's not really a lot of nature in whatever that he's describing. Why isn't he living out in the countryside? Why is he downtown with all of the cars and all of the pollution and all the rest of it? And how come on his list of things to worry about, food prices are not one of them, out of control rents are not one of them? I just think that when you're dealing with a fanatic who, now that his pension's kicked in, is never going to have to worry about money ever again for the remainder of his life, it's easy to talk about how virtuous he is with the clouds and the birds and all the things that he taught, nature, parks. Yeah, parks, make them nice and comfortable for all the homeless people to sleep in. It's great.
2019 to 21 and until recently, climate and identity, culture and nature. I honestly, the dust is still settling since my decision of last week, but I'm definitely there for the coming months.
So you haven't decided beyond that?
Let's talk. Let's have another conversation.
I will definitely invite you. I just wanted to ask one final question, because as you were speaking, I was thinking, like, to be fair to the Prime Minister, he hasn't made a secret of his economic agenda, right? And he's been clear right through the election around the desire to make Canada an energy superpower, but inclusive in that conventional. I can think of the first interview I conducted with him after the swearing-in ceremony, in which I asked about some key environmental policies that Alberta had identified as irritants to development. He indicated even then that he was open to rolling them back because of his desire to see big projects and big things get done. Like, why now is this such a surprise in a way? Like, what?
I don't believe Carney has any intention of unleashing the prosperity of Canada. I think that he wants to control it, like all centralist Marxists want. Everybody who follows the Marxist doctrine, and when you read Mark Carney's book, he doesn't talk about Marxism as the father of the German process or the Italian process or the Russian process, like, those three political ideologies. He talks about Marx as a economist. He literally mentions the man as an economist, the man that was filthy rich, telling everybody that we have to take back the means of control. Mark Carney's grift is all about pretending that he's one thing while he does another. And then he, much of his climate stuff fell to pieces when Trump took office. I don't trust Mark Carney to unlock or unleash this country. What we need is a middle class. We need people with their own ideas that can get to work, that can be just get it done and don't have to, I get it. You make your applications for your particular, you don't just run around like a crazy person. But to say that it's going to take me 4 years just to get permission to build a house, that I think is a little bit ridiculous. Not a little bit, that is absolutely ridiculous. And people that follow Mark Carney's ideology, they're the ones that allow for that kind of delay, that kind of inactivity, so that they can funnel it all into one or two separate corporations, that they then take control of the corporation, and then in their mind, they have no competition, they have control of all of it. And that's the thing we have to look at with Mark Carney. Otherwise, like if it were me as prime minister, I'd be like, you know what, let's just dig them. If you can put one in the ground, I'm going to sign off on it. We're not going to make the water dirty. We're not going to make the ground dirty. But otherwise, get out of the way, because we've got to get to work, Thomas Joseph, hello from Bluegrass State of Kentucky. Missed the old Canada. What happened? Yeah, we're still trying to fix it. Don't worry, we'll get there. Come hell or high water, yeah? Okay, how we doing? We're doing good. We're almost there, guys.
What did he not disclose that prompted this drastic of a decision?
I mean,
it was $20 from Thomas. Sorry about that. Thank you.
I think that there's been mixed messages that have been sent over time. I certainly support the idea of making sure that Canada is an energy superpower. In my view and the view of many of my colleagues, this is a green superpower, like critical minerals, renewable energy, clean technologies, and there are many of the things that are part of the plan right now that I still support.
So is oil and gas.
But.
Again, I want to stress that Thomas gave $20 and I didn't see it at first. Thank you very much. I am all for people in like the desert that have solar panels. I get it. You got a solar panel. You can get going. Arizona's got a lot of power coming in from a solar panel. Arizona has over 300 days a year that has no cloud in the sky. It's easy to get things up and running when you got no clouds in the sky. In Canada, I mean, where I am right now, it's minus 18 and there's probably 2 inches of snow on the ground. So I need solar panel. Where's the solar panel? The sun's rising at 6:30 and it's setting at 4:30? I mean, what are you on about? You would think a man would know better, right? But this is the problem with fanatics. They don't want to hear, they don't want to meet you halfway, they don't want to find any middle ground. If they would stop being such fanatics, we could simply slow walk it to the solution. And if it took us till, the year 3000, what difference would it make? It's only, a couple of extra years. Like somebody in chat mentioned, they have no idea what's happening with the history of the weather of this world. We've only, as humans, been tracking weather for about 150 years. Everything else is just a guess.
This idea that, and I was even willing to entertain a conversation about a pipeline if done properly. One of the things that was difficult with the agreement was the fact that we had made an agreement with Elizabeth May from the Greens to support us in the budget by not including a specific subsidy to oil and gas, and it's explicitly stated in the budget that we wouldn't do that, and then we turn around 2 weeks later and we put it in this agreement with Alberta. That was I was one of the person who was asked to work with Ms. May.
Did you help convince her to support the budget?
I did. I wasn't the only one, but I did, and I felt that this was not a genuine gesture on our part. She supported us in good faith. I don't think she will support us moving forward. I think that bridge has been burned, and to me that was something that was difficult to accept. I think, yes.
But again, I guess.
The one person of the Green Party is not going to support you. Wow.
I just wonder, he has made it explicit from the beginning that he wanted to see oil development. Sort of. Obviously his track record prior to is why Conservatives doubted those statements, but he has said it on numerous occasions. Why, when it was in black and white, did it surprise you in the end?
Well, actually, our platform talked about making Canada an energy superpower, but we weren't specific about projects and things we wanted to do. And I understood why the Prime Minister decided to get rid of the consumer carbon pricing. It was very controversial, politically controversial. I understood when we decided to pause the regulation for electric vehicles. The auto sector is going through a rough time.
Sorry, guys, but I like to react to them as they talk. And he needs to get rid of the industrial carbon tax. Food in this country is too expensive. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, food and housing has to be cheap. Forget about the rest of it. I don't care. When you can give me that for cheap, then you can do whatever you like. As long as I can eat, have a nice place to live, and it's not killing my bank account, I can still have some savings. I can still, see my children get nice gifts and all the things that go along with having a decent bank account, then fine. To tell me that I got to suffer while you sit up there in your, tailor-made suit with your silk tie and your silk little, unless it's plastic, which of course wouldn't be Stephen Guilbeault, would it? Because, that's a single-use plastic. I think that these guys talk this big talk without ever having to walk the walk. And when you're the one walking the walk, you should be listening to me, not the other way around, just because you won your the seat in your area.
Right now, but it was the accumulation of, like, abandoning the emissions on the cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector. Even if we do pathways, so if we capture that carbon and we store it for oil sands, we'll be worse off from an emissions perspective, from a pollution perspective, if we add another 1 million barrels from a new pipeline, even with carbon capture and storage, than the current situation. We're worse off, according to a study by the Pembina Institute in Alberta.
These guys that want their own particular institute, you're right, Donnie. You cannot tax a nation into success. Cole, 5271 with $5 says, howdy from North Carolina. I wonder if Canadians will ever wake up to see how dumb the Liberals are. The thing is that what we need is this recession to kick in so that the cities will start to suffer. And then once the cities start to suffer, the Liberals will lose their entire base. Their whole base is all urban. If you look at the political map, out west doesn't qualify, but when you look at Ontario, they have Ottawa and they have Toronto, and the rest of it is, it's conservative. I think that Mr. Guilbeault talking about how no matter what this guy's going to tell you, he's going to tell you that it all has to be done his way. I think that the best thing he should do is take his pension and just move off into one of these countries like that you see in Africa where they got no running water and no electricity, or that you see in any of the, there's a lot of countries out there. I just think Africa comes to mind where they got no running water and they got no electricity. And then you can live this dream that you're talking about. And something tells me that he's not going to be giving up his Netflix anytime soon.
So it's the accumulation of these things that led me to this decision.
Okay, I will leave it on that note. Thanks for your time as always, Mr. Guilbeault. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, I hope he's off the screen. Like, I hope I know what I'm doing. I streamed. I did a live stream, like, or whatever you call it. I did I did it. I don't know what it's called anymore, but I pulled it off. And you were all with me, so I thank you for that. Stephen Guilbeault is not he's going to be more and more forgotten. Just like that fellow that crossed the floor. Where is he now? The press made 2 days of all kinds of craziness about it, and now not a word. He's not showing up at all. I still can't get my head around why Stephen Guilbeault feels that we should all suffer for his vision of what the world looks like. Mark Carney feels that he should profit off of us to make what the world looks like. All the while, they do all this business in China. They both have investments in China. And China is not known for their environmental stewardship. Neither is India. There's many countries in the world that are... India's economy just went up nearly 9% in the last quarter. That is a staggering amount of money. Now, India's got a weird... I'm going to turn this down now. India's got a strange sort of... because they have the caste system, so there's, despite the fact that they have a bigger GDP than Canada by over $1 trillion, and now that they've made an additional 8.2% in the last quarter, they're going to be near on to $4 trillion, and Canada's dropping into like the 1.9. However, the GDP per person is different because there's a lot of poverty in India, and a lot of people at the top get all the money, and nobody at the bottom gets any money. So the GDP per person is much smaller than what it is in Canada, even though Canada's it's the smallest in the ODCP.
Nonetheless, they have decided to become capitalist in some ways, and now their economy has exploded, which is due in part to the deal with Donald Trump, where they have, they're negotiating with American businesses to be the manufacturing center for that part of the world. And they'll make it in India, and then they can ship it to all of the various regions so that India can be sort of severed away from the influence of Russia. Now, there is some indication that this conflict that's happening between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is trying to trigger something in the Kazakhstan area, is all being funded by Russia through China. There's some indication on that. And if you don't know what I mean, that's okay. Sometimes I think about doing world news because I watch it, And sometimes I think, well, I should tell Canadians about it, because I look and I don't see anybody doing it, like to bring the news to people in Canada about what's going on in the rest of the world. Like right now, I'm kind of trying to figure out a way to say how the situation with the UAE, and I heard Mark Carney talk about how he's going to bring the UAE over here and is going to invest the $2 trillion of Canada's pensions in, or he's going to use the finance minister to do it, in the UAE. And I'm like, so you're going to invest in somebody else's oil, you're just not going to invest in Canadian oil. Maybe he means he's going to invest in some of the gold that the UAE is getting out of the Sudan after the conflict, where at least there are more people that were killed in Sudan in a week than all of the West Bank combined so far. And Mark Carney wants to do business with them. That doesn't seem like the kind of stewardship that we should be looking for. And I think about that when I think about Bill C-9, how the Carney government is always slamming on Israel, but is always trying to get in bed with people from like other countries from the Middle East. And in my head, there's like, what they have in difference is religion. That's the primary difference between all of the countries of the Middle East. They're very theocratic. And why the C-9 bill is like the theatrics that they just pulled off with the C-9, which was really kind of like disgusting, if I'm honest with you. Pipsqueak, $10 says, good or bad stream, we are with you. Stream. Are you saying it's a bad stream? Because I'm trying my best. We appreciate your hard work to bring us the information we can rely on as truth. Well, you know what, Pip, I'll tell you the truth. I have no shortage of opinions. Not even a little bit. And I try to be very delicate in how I spread them. I don't want to be, because if there's no camera running and I'm in the right crowd, you'll think that I was like, a trucker married a fisherman and I was the kid they raised. However, I'm trying my hardest to make sure that I can keep it clean, because I feel that keeping it clean brings it to a larger audience. If there are people out there that are under the age of 18 and I don't have any profanity, then they can watch my stream without having to sign in, you see, and they can see. I mean, they might not be super excited about politics, though they should be, especially men of that age, because they are right up against it. But I thank you for joining me, Pipsqueak. I appreciate it very much. And I'm hoping it's not a bad stream. I mean, my Grace Charming and my wonderful laugh can only take me so far, though. I do like when I watch these guys and I try to learn, like, just different people that are like, oh, he's doing a live stream. And I mean, I feel like I'd like to do it. It seems pretty fun. It seems like I could have fun, but I think the only thing I can do is to just do more of it and learn as I go. That seems to be like what I'm up against. I don't know. You guys can tell me what you think. It is professional. I agree with you on that. Well, I don't hate President Trump, man. I wish I had a President Trump. Like if we had voted another way, Poilievre would have been running neck and neck with Trump. He would have just been like, yeah, we're just firing that up. Do you know that Chevron, I mean, I'm going to do a story on this. Chevron, Pip, you're being very generous. It's a great stream, she says, Pipsqueak, for $10. I forget the numbers on the end of her name, but Pipsqueak, I just said Pip. $10 said it's a great stream. I thank you very much. Chevron, I just found out today, because I pay attention to these things, because I'm trying to match the truth or the facts versus what I hear coming out of the Liberal government. And that's going to be the best part about Stephen Guilbeault disappearing. No more, well, not as much of that. DeBruzen, being the environment minister, she will just, whatever Carney says, she's got it typed on her hand, and whatever he says is what she will say. You can see it when she stands up in the House of Commons. She looks to him for reassurance, left, right, and center. However, Chevron is about to invest $19 billion in oil development in the United States in 2026. That's what they've announced to their shareholders, $19 billion. These companies don't, they don't throw up that kind of money because they think they're going to go broke. And they certainly don't do it because they think that they're cleaning up the environment. What everybody forgets is that, like I just said about Africa, for example, there's a lot of people that, they don't need foundations in their houses, but they could sure use some electricity and running water, I'm sure. Now, water is an interesting factor in Africa. They control it. There's a lot of wells dug and things of that nature. But if you've ever looked at it at night, there's no lights running. There's very little going on except for a couple of few sectors. But for the most part, it's pretty dark. And so they could use the electricity, and how's the best way to get that electricity up and running is with, fossil fuels. They're having an issue with it, I think, in Mali right now, where the Russians are using, I can't remember the name of the other country, to run oil into Mali. And then I believe, I can't prove it, but I'm pretty sure the Americans are paying this rebel group to destroy all of the oil. They literally pull the guy out of the truck, the driver out of the truck, give him a swift kick and send him on his down the road. And then they don't steal the oil or the fuel, they blow it up. Because in my mind, this is a way that they're getting back on the economy of Russia, right? Because Russia's trying to get their oil sold in Africa in exchange for different things, whether it be gold or whether it be diamonds or whether it be other things that Africans might have. And in return, the African, whatever, in this case, Mali, will have electricity to run their generators and to operate their vehicles. Now, they're not driving around in SUVs. There's a lot of motorcycles, to be honest. However, that's the way we always begin these things, is there's motorcycles because they're small and they're inexpensive and all the rest of that. And then people move and move and move. And I get that maybe we shouldn't be giving that money to Russia. And I still hold true. The second that Russia decides to make peace with Donald Trump, and it will be the second that all of his sins will be forgiven and his oil will be able to flow just as widely as everybody else's. The point that I'm making is that a guy like Stephen Guilbeault doesn't seem to care about how much of the global south is flat broke because they don't have electricity. It's not about the drive. It's not about, if it was about the drive, you wouldn't see any of them coming to the west. They'd all be like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to hang out on my hammock here. But they're all like, you know what? I'm going to struggle to get across the earth because then I can maybe get a part-time job or a minimum wage job, and then maybe my kids will have a decent life after they get an education. So why we wouldn't be selling them every drop of oil so that they can develop and get productivity? And Danielle Smith correctly says that if we are the country that leads the way, we can then tell them what technology to use that will keep it clean as possible. But Stephen Guilbeault, he can't see the woods for the trees. He's just a fanatic. And that's the kind of thing that Canadians need to overcome. I get that there's a lot of people in the country right now that are fairly far left, and they believe that they're being far left because somehow that's going to hurt Donald Trump's feelings. I don't think that they understand politics. One of the reasons that I got this channel up and running is because I don't believe many of the people on the far left pay enough attention to the facts on politics. Now, I know everybody watching my channel is adept, and if you know people who are not paying attention, or if you hear somebody say, oh, I don't pay attention to politics, share my channel with them, because I am trying my best to teach them how to be politically savvy. I still think the best way to keep people like DeBruzen and Carney and all of them in check is to say, hey, I am very politically astute. I'm up to date on what's going on in this country. And you have let us all down, and you have taken us down this path of poverty instead of prosperity. We have all of the things in this country needs. What we don't have right now is the political will. I don't understand who these people are that think in their minds, yeah, you know what I want to do? I want to pay for somebody's tiny little cubicle, and I'm going to pay through the nose. In my town and where I live, I was out for a walk the other day. I'm trying to get some of the weight off, like Vashi, though. She seems to be moving much faster than me. And there's a new bunch of buildings being put up. And I thought, okay, let me have a look, right? So they're being sold as townhouses, and one unit is being sold as like luxury condos. And, there's no pavement down. Everything is like, so half of them have no windows and that kind of stuff. So I stopped to have a look because I understand how these things work. And then there's this big billboard, right, talking about how they're starting at $380,000. $380,000. And I thought, okay, that's where they start. So where they're going to finish probably in the 750. You're going to pay nearly $1 million for a townhouse. Not sure how that math computes. And then I turn as I look at the sign because one building is a little bit done, and I look, and already it said for rent. So somebody bought it just to rent it. And then I'm like, well, there it is, right? So you're all of a sudden buying it for whatever it is, $500,000, and you're going to be trying to turn a profit off it by renting it out for $3,000 a month. And then as it becomes less and less new, it becomes less and less valuable. And the next thing you know, all of the property value of everybody around them, it drops as a result. And this is an economy stuff that everybody takes. That's funny, Donnie. Was a wet spot on the bed. He's gone now, though. That'll be it. That's his last hurrah. We won't hear from him again unless somehow he makes peace with Carney, but he won't because Carney knows he's caused him a lot of trouble. I mean, he picked Joel Lightblood or whatever his name is as the lieutenant for Quebec. People underestimate how significant that job is, the lieutenant for Quebec. Without the Liberal Party, without Quebec, the Liberal Party has nowhere to go. Nobody really supports the Liberal Party in the way that Quebec does. So that's why they get away with so much, right? That's why, because when the Liberal Party has them on their side, they will give them everything in order to keep them on their side. The Liberal Party are shameless. They don't have the moral compass of an alley cat, if you want my opinion. They don't care. They will simply bribe every voter they can get their hands on. Just like the Democrat Party in the United States of America, they don't seem to be too worried about the ethics of any of it. They just want to have the job. They just want the job. They're not in it for you and I. They're in it for themselves. So I don't know, Joel Lightfoot, I haven't even heard him make a comment about being appointed lieutenant of Quebec. But that's a big gig for people in Quebec. And I'm starting to get used to keep talking with my headphones on because right now I can hear myself. That's a big gig for people that are in Quebec. They turn to this lieutenant governor, the governor. What do they call it? The Quebec lieutenant. That's what they call him. And they turn to him to get things done when things don't go their way. So that was a big push. And like I have figured out, like I said today, I figured out how come it is. Because when I saw Mark Carney pick Mark Miller, I was like, what is happening? Like, have I gone into the bizarro world? There's no way in the world that he would want to put somebody like Mark Miller in his cabinet. And the proof of that is the first interview Mark Miller gets in a scrum, and the very next day he starts slamming the Carney government. But then I watched the committee on the C9 and I saw it. I was like, oh, I get it. He had to give Mark Miller a job so that Mark Miller would be removed as the chair of that meeting. And then they can go ahead and railroad the Conservative Party in that meeting with all kinds of very unparliamentary behavior and extremely blatant disregard of not only the protocols, but of actual legislation. I did a video on it. I just put it up, I don't know, just like a few minutes before I got onto live stream. I was so close. I wasn't even sure I was going to get on live stream tonight. But then I said, no, you can't do that. You have to do more, not less. And so I was like, okay, I have to do it. Now I'm a little bit annoyed that this thing is still here telling me that somehow I'm running at 19. You know how it's 1920 by 10, like 19 by 1080? Well, it's saying that I'm running at 1082. I mean, how do you even set that? Who can set that 1082? How do you even do that? I'm not even sure how that's done. Like, but I have to physically type that in? I don't know, you know. Are you still there? Let's have a one if you're still there. Sterling, it's a new government. It's the new government number. What? 1082? Yeah, that'd be funny. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are still there. Mark Miller is not a friend to Mark Carney, though. I can tell you right now. Like, he was a groomsman in Trudeau's wedding party. They have known each other for a very long time. They probably, you know, brush shoulders in the same schools and all of that. He is absolutely not a friend to Mark Carney. But Mark Carney is desperate to get C9 pushed through before Christmas, apparently. I don't know why he is in such a rush on C9, but I can tell you when I watched I didn't watch the committee because there was so much that happened in the first 15 minutes with the anointment of this new chair. And I broke it down. It's a 30-minute video, but I broke it down step by step because I wanted everybody to see it, because I'm trying to make everybody see the nuances of these guys. That's like, you know, I should make a trailer about that. Anyway, so I get it now, and now I'm confused as to why Mark Carney's so anxious to push this bill through the C9. It's only like 10 pages long. I had a quick look at it, and I didn't see much in there that would bite people. I can say for sure that it's possible that they're simply trying to garner back some of the voter of Toronto, like for the people that support Israel, because there was a lot of people that were just observing this meeting. There are a lot of people like in the crowd, like there was for the benches, the benches inside of this meeting were kind of full for a cabinet meeting. But like I've said in the video, I can assure you that if this bill passes C9, you will see all kinds of religious unity between the Christians and the Jewish and the the Christians and the Muslims and the Christians and the Jewish and the Hindu and the Muslims and the Hindu, because there will be nothing but a steady stream of lawyers that'll say this bill is unconstitutional, and they will take that right into the Supreme Court and it will get crushed, because it's, you know, you can't tell people that you don't have the right to say what their religion teaches them. That's just, maybe Mark Carney's hoping to start a religious conflict, some sort of religious revolution, which is just a ridiculous thing to do. I mean, even he can't be that stupid. Yes, hit the like button. Thank you. I appreciate that too. And I saw Cindy say that earlier too, but I feel bad sometimes when I'm like, I don't want to interrupt the show, but you know, what are you going to do? I think anybody that by now can tell I can chat if you need me to. And I like to go step by step with these guys. Next time I will find something else. Like I had that one geared up and ready to go. I don't want to go streaming around for too much right now. Nah, there's no reason for you to pass it on. What is that? Genghis Tron. That's funny. Listen, I had a rough go. I'll be straight with you. There's no denying that. Nobody was giving my father, Father of the Year awards. But you don't see me taking it out on you. You know, like that's an excuse that I don't agree with. You have to find the way to get to your own mental health, and I think that I saw some images of Trudeau like some video of him when he was boxing, trying to box and stuff. And he just loves the attention. That's why when he hears his name or when people clap, he just can't help himself. He has a real case of narcissism, that guy. Sometimes you see it in Mark Carney a little bit when when Carney's up in the house and everybody behind him starts clapping, and somehow he thinks in his mind that that he's done something great, but it's just theater. They're clapping because they're trying to convince people on TikTok or people on YouTube. Or I don't think the Liberals get much traction on YouTube, but they get a lot of traction on Blue Sky, and they get a lot of traction on the TikTok. So, I mean, I don't have TikTok or Blue Sky, but I know from people that I talk to that there's a lot of stuff on there from the Liberal Party, especially the backbenchers, where they just pull out their phone. I myself don't have TikTok because I don't trust their, when I read the security issues, I don't agree with that. And I don't imagine I'd last too long on Blue Sky. Those guys over there are just kind of crazy people, if you ask me. And even my ex has been a little bit lacking all of November. I'm going to be doing more. I'm making, adjustments to make more content. Oh man. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying for me, Genghis, I'm sorry if it broke down, guys. It's still telling me that I'm 2 megapixels out, which is weird. Gave me an opportunity to put a candy in my mouth. I don't know why all of a sudden it decided to crash. That's right. Talk to each other, guys. I think that's great. That's what it's for. I don't know if I've limited it or anything. I heard you can do that, but I don't think I did. Yeah, it said I crashed. I had to hit the reload. So I'm enjoying it, this streaming. I'm going to get up to 5 days a week where like maybe I should do an hour a day instead of 2 hours. I don't like that. Ever since I started it though, my traction has bottomed right out. Like I'm not getting any of the views on my vids. I'm not getting anybody signing up, and I'm not whining. I'm only paying attention to the algorithm, like to where I was before versus where I am now. It could also very well be that people saw me go live and thought, man, the guy's a lunatic. I'm not listening to him. That wouldn't be the first time. So I'm going to keep at it. I'll keep trying. I got this equipment. I'm getting a little bit better with it. I like my new mic. It's making my voice deeper. It has a setting. There's ways I can make it even deeper on the back, but I'm not going to bother with that. This is just me, how I speak. So I don't know. I'll get better. I want to do better. I'm trying to get to the same. I would like to get to the level where I can open a store because I have some ideas for merch. And I think I might start talking a little bit about what goes on in the world because I pay attention to it. So I might as well share it with you guys. Yeah, listen, I'm not judging you. I'm only saying that I get it, right? I understand that people have hardships as children and they don't always necessarily grow up to be healthy in the mind. I'm saying that his priority then should have been getting healthy in the mind instead of trying to tell himself that he was going to be Prime Minister of Canada. But that's just me trying to say that people sometimes prioritize the wrong things. What I don't like about Justin Trudeau is that he didn't accomplish anything that he claimed he was going to do from 2015. Absolutely nothing. And he doesn't seem to bother him. He's not ashamed of himself in any way, shape, or form. If I was in politics and if I was saying to you guys, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then I didn't do any of it, I'd be like, I suck. Like that kind of thing would bother me. It doesn't seem to bother him. And who are these guys that they can turn around and try to convince me that carbon taxes are not raising the cost of things? Whether it be the industrial carbon tax, whether it be the carbon tax at the pumps, it's a tax. But in their mind, they think that businesses are just going to eat it, right? Like this guy who went, spent 3 years of business school, he's looking down at his costs and he's not saying to himself, well, I'm not making as much money because the costs have gone up. So I'll just leave the price I'm selling my thing at I'll just leave it where it is. I'm paying 25% more to make the thing, but I'm just going to leave the price where it is because what I want to do is go broke so that people like DeBruzen and Carney can try to convince you and me that there's no increase of the cost from the carbon industrial pricing. It's ridiculous, and it's insulting to our intelligence, and it impacts our standard of living. I come from the school of thought that the government's their whole job is to protect the standard of living. It's not to make the world think we're leading the way in this or make the world think we're leading the way in that. Who cares what the world thinks? I don't care. If the world thinks so little of us, how come every time I turn around, they're trying to come in this country? Like, explain that to me. But my position is not going to change. I feel that Canadians should be holding our politicians to account until food is affordable, till housing is affordable. Housing is going to be a particularly tough nut to crack because the banks are heavily invested, and the second that housing starts to go down, they're going to lose a lot of money. It would be cheaper for them they would make more money if everybody foreclosed on the houses and the CMHA paid it off, and then they sold it at a reduced price. But we have a real shortage of it, and of course, when there's a shortage of anything, the price of it goes up. And really, when you look at the shortage of housing, there's only very few people in this country that are going to benefit from that. You're paying twice as much for a unit that when Justin Trudeau took over in 2015, in some cases 3 times as much. It's that much older, and the neighborhood that you're living in is not any nicer. That's the kind of foolishness that bothers me about this government. I think the government needs to be responsible for their own behavior. Quit expecting me to accept their excuses for that behavior. What I want to know is that everybody is living a decent lifestyle where people are not having to steal food because they're that hungry and then getting in trouble. You imagine your whole life getting thrown out because all you really wanted to do was have something to eat and you just couldn't take it any longer. So you went in and stole a can of salad or something, like a can of stew or something. And you got arrested for that. And that was it. That's the remainder of your life now. That thing's going to hang around your neck because all the government has made food so expensive that you simply couldn't get your hands on any of it and you just got desperate. Poverty creates desperation like nobody's business. That's why when you see a rich person come up against a problem, they don't worry about it too much. But when you see a poor person come up against a problem, it basically devastates their life. The only difference is not that one person has a better constitution than the other. The difference is one's got more money than the other. And the federal government has a responsibility to Canadians. What I want to understand is how come nobody why am I maybe now I'm not the only one, but it seems to me that the lumber people are coming into so the lumber is a great example because we need lumber to build houses. We have a lot of it, like 93% of the country is covered with lumber. They're like, we have to sell more to the States, do something about it. The United States doesn't want the lumber coming in because they say that and they won in the WTO, right? That the lumber in Canada is subsidized by the government, which in a way it is. The government gives you the piece of property, whereas in the States you have to buy the piece of property. Now, either way, if the government's going to be kicking in money to the lumber industry, then the lumber in our stores should be cheap, should be dirt cheap. But it's not. It's very, very expensive. And it's gone up like 400% or something in the last 10 years. I have a clip. This guy that is in, I think, Oklahoma, actually. He's buying 4x8 birch plywood, 3/4 inch for the floor at $25 US. I mean, he's happy as a clam. He's buying the whole pallet. And that's because of the policies of Donald Trump and how he's unleashed. So now as he's unleashed, everybody's getting more of it. Prices come down because he's taking care of the people on the ground. The Liberal government thinks we're here to serve them. They basically want us to hold them on our shoulders and walk around like in one of those chairs. Sorry, guys, keep talking. I'm trying to think about, I'm fleshing out some ideas on storylines, and I'm trying to see, when will they stop sending money to Ukraine? When we were just watching that Vashi Kapelos and Stephen Guilbeault thing, if you looked at the bottom of the ticker, it said, one of the things it says was, Freeland says Ukraine is a great investment. It's a war zone. It's a great investment as Canada sends another $536 million to Ukraine, an additional $536 million to a war zone. A war zone that is actively getting heavier by the day with Donald Trump pushing the peace accords. Now, for those of you that don't know, whenever you make peace, there's always a flurry of combat the closer you get. Now, last weekend, because I pay attention, and like I said, I should be doing stories on it. Right now, the big conflict in Ukraine and Russia is being fought by drones. It's rated as some sort of science fiction movie. And the infrastructure is being torn to shreds. So everybody's blowing up each other's electricity generating stations, just to put it in a simplified term. And last week was no exception. In fact, Russia hit them hard on the weekend, very, very hard. Took out this massive, basically put third of the country in a blackout situation because they destroyed the infrastructure for the electricity or the generating station for the electricity. Now, Trump is trying to bring peace, but nobody else in the coalition of the willing is trying to make peace. And Russia, it turns out, has got a scientific vessel basically doing laps around England, just on the outskirts of their so the line for the British Sea is right here, and they're basically skirting it about as close they're not crossing the line, but they're getting as very close to it as possible. And it's really interesting because there's a part of the English Channel where it meets France, that the French international boundary for their water and the English international boundary for their water cross, and they're just sailing through the French part of the channel, essentially. But it's a research vessel. And if you believe that, I got a tower downtown I can sell you. Downtown Toronto, I can sell you. So it's getting kind of interesting. Now, I have no idea why Mark Carney thinks that Canada is in any position to fight a war. We are absolutely not. And I don't see how anyone in this country is going to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be a great, let's be straightforward. That would be a great movie. But it is the beginning of, like, it must look like, well, from all I've seen, they're running netting, Donnie, for like 50 kilometers netting. So these guys got to go out there in the daytime or the nighttime, whatever, and run basically mosquito net on poles, 3 layers deep, so that trucks can drive underneath it without getting taken out by the drones. The drones are, and I saw another one where on not just for the drones, now some genius has turned a tank with, it's a tank, but they mounted on it twin 50 caliber machine guns, and they're driving it with a remote control. So there's nobody in it. So it's a tank, but it's a remote control. And in my head, I'm thinking, we can't even get Canadians to make a submarine, and these guys are turning tanks into Tyco cars. We are doomed. What are we doing sending more money into this mess? These guys are light years ahead of us. And, what are we doing over here? Like, what's going on? We get everything they need, and somehow we ourselves can't even make our own submarine. It's astounding. Just incredible how badly our country is being led by the far left, and how the far left always thinks war is different than it really is. But it's tricky. It's complicated. This African front opened up by Putin is very, very, like, there's a lot of money in that. And then all through the middle of the continent, the UAE is basically just trying to, well, basically, according to all reports, they're trying to kill everybody so they can take all the gold. And by everybody, I mean, tens and tens of thousands of people. Like, it makes Gaza look like it's worse than Gaza. I should just say it like that. There's more people that have been removed than there have been in the entire Gaza for the 2 years. So the whole wide world has gone to fighting one another, and the Russians are learning how to do it by remote control. So that's a little bit scary when you think about how many things. We got drones everywhere, right? Like, people can buy them off the Amazon for $150. Imagine putting on a bunch of explosives onto it and just flying it into a truck. It's $150 to a military thing. That's nothing. Okay, maybe $50 worth of hand grenades. You fly it into a truck. That truck is doomed. Like, maybe even if nobody gets hurt, like if humans get hurt, the truck's not going to be moving any further. So they say, okay, let me put up netting to stop that. I don't know how I got on it. Well, I got onto it because somebody said, about Ukraine. And I'm like, yeah, Freeland thinks we just sent another $500 million to Ukraine because Freeland thinks that it's a great investment. I'm not sure where she's getting her video clips from. I can tell you from what I'm seeing, though, there's nothing good investing. Like, there's no infrastructure being built there. That's why Trump wants peace there so bad, because he's got a lot of money invested in the critical minerals. I think that Canadians need to just stop pretending like we're going to save the whole wide world. If they get here, we could save them, but I'm not trying to send any more money there. We need so much food and housing that, carrots are a penny a piece. Like, we need to be focusing on Canada and not focusing on Ukraine or any UAE or any of these places, China. They can all forget about it, because all of these countries are coming to Canada for what we have. So if we have what they want, we should be utilizing it ourselves. That way we can take control of the situation much like the Americans do, because the Americans have what people want. But our government is not good that way. Our government is leading us to, this destruction or this Marxist ideology. And by Karl Marx's ideology spawned 3 types of ideology. I don't know if people know that. But when I say Marx, I mean one of those 3. And they all end in isms. One came to fame in 1930s Germany, 1930 to 40 Germany. One came to fame in 1920s Italy. And one came to fame at 1917 in the Russian Revolution. So we're not talking about some decent stuff here. We're talking about some really scary thought processes. And it's destroying the world. And somehow the only thing that's turning it all back is Trump's actions in the United States of America that we could be copying if we simply had Mark Carney out of the way. I don't know why the NDP is waiting so long to have their leadership, but I'm pretty sure that handheld tools, and yes, I have a handy collection. Did I miss the conversation? Now, are we talking about actual tools, or do we mean tools in the slang term? Remote controls and hypersonic missiles. Exactly. Some kid with a cell phone is going to have control of a hypersonic missile. It's terrible. I mean, it's good for them, I guess, but Canada seems so far behind when you compare it. When you compare our economy to even the States or India, Mexico's economy makes more money than Canada's does. Yeah, oh yeah, no, I have a lot of experience with handheld tools myself, Tony. I'll be completely honest with you. And, if push comes to shove, I can, but I don't have many of them kicking around. I suppose I should start replacing them. Sometimes I look at some of these stuff that they got out now and I'm like, yeah, I should get one of those. And I'm just not there yet. However, I do see how, 12-year-olds driving drones filled with munitions is the future, is the way we're going. Because the development that they have made in this Ukraine-Russian conflict, I will start showcasing more of it. I will, so that you guys can see what's going on. The CBC is not going to tell us. I try looking it up sometimes, and then I put on my VPN, and then I do the same. I do the exact same wording, and the stuff that shows up with the VPN running is like, it's night and day. And I think that's disgusting. I think that to censor people is ridiculous. Like, I get you might want to censor, certain things from certain age groups and all the rest of that. But to say to me that I can't understand the conflict that's happening in the Ukraine because you want to control what I hear, or to say to me that I can't hear, like, have you ever tried to search for Fox without a VPN on in Canada? Good luck with that. You can even put in specifically, and the best Google will give me is the random channel, right? So it's like Fox channel 12 from Albuquerque. And I'm like, why can't you just give me the whole? Because they just censor the liberal government through the CRTC controls what we're watching. And that's with Bill C-11 and Bill C-18. I'm also victim to those exact same bills, Bill C-11 and Bill C-18. They are doing some pretty creative stuff. I'll tell you, the nets, I hadn't thought about a bow. That's a pretty good shot, though. I do see they're mounting shotguns on these drones. And the new one that I saw just last weekend when they were talking about, when I was watching them blow up these electricity generating stations, they are dropping, what's it called? I forget what it's called now. But it burns at like 700 degrees centigrade. Thermite? Yeah, thermite. They're dropping thermite on top of this netting. So they got a drone that's manufacturing thermite, just dropping little globs of it as it flies along the top of this netting in an effort to burn it so that they can cut holes in it and then bring in other drones to stop the trucks from moving the freight or whatever it is, but it's mostly freight, right? Like it's not too many. It's not people. It's supplies. They're moving supplies around. And I just think in my mind, they're dropping thermite from drones. We are well behind in this country. Well behind. I mean, luckily we got the Americans not too far away. So if push comes to shove, I'm sure they'll give us all the drones we ever need. However, I don't see why we're sending Ukraine I don't see why we're sending them any money. We have enough money, or we have a need for money in this country. Every time you hear them sending money to Ukraine, for example, which is where I started this conversation, they are borrowing that money. So we're paying interest on that. That's like putting something on your credit card and then never touching it yourself, giving it away, and then paying slowly on your credit card. Like you don't even have the money to like lay it all down in one shot. You have to pay the interest rates. It's just terrible to think that our government is putting us through that. And again, without compunction, they don't care. They're not even embarrassed. They're not ashamed of themselves. They use their media to try to convince us that it's us that doesn't know any better. I think we know better. Let me see a number 2 if we know better. I believe we know better. I'm going to put my own 2 in there. Look at this. Look, I can do that, I think. A number 2. Tent City Food Bank Healthcare. Yeah, and we could be solving a lot. 9.5. There's always one smart aleck, eh, Mary? Good for you. All day. Oh, Schwangster at $13.99. Can't join you tonight, sir, but we'll watch tomorrow. Rustad resigned in my province and no real hope in sight, so I'll go watch a movie with my babe. Now, if you watch Telegraph, I think his name is The Telegraph, Wyatt Claypool, he is all over this resignation of Rustad, and he is suggesting that if you really want to vote for a conservative, because Rustad for the whole time, well, yeah. Well, they only, for the dumb ones, they get elected by the Liberal Party instead. Going back to Schwangster, he is doing a very thorough dive on it. Apparently, he was there watching it in the House because he works with the One BC Party. Like he's a One BC Party member, and he was watching how it happened, and he's well versed in the resignation, and he doesn't feel that the British Columbia, what are they called, the BC Party, is going to be any good. He feels that they're mostly been penetrated by liberals, and the liberal backbiting is what got it all up and running. I think it's bizarre to me to know that the guy Rustad almost took the House, and yet now he's resigning like a few months later. But he got drummed out of every party he's been in, so maybe there's just something wrong with the guy. Either way, you can watch this channel anytime you like, and thanks for stopping in, and I appreciate the $13.99. Don't you think I don't? Phil, how are you? We need, I'll tell you something about Smith in British Columbia, Mary. It's not, I don't believe the people that have control of the media in British Columbia understand the difference in the way people feel about the pipeline in the northern part of British Columbia. Mark Carney's trying to convince everybody that it's going to be okay because he's building this hydroelectricity line, but he's really only building the hydroelectricity line to power the LNG plant that's going to be paying for the AI system. So there's not really a lot of benefit for the people that are, there might be a couple of jobs, but the pipeline is a lot of money for a lot of people for a long, long time. And that's really what the message that has to be pushed. Of course, southern British Columbia has a different perspective on all of this because they live in that tiny little cubicle of an island, which I just think is ridiculous. $4 million for a condo that, is not even 2,000 square feet. Who can afford to live? I guess people can afford to live like that. But it's easy to have that kind of money and have your yacht sitting in the water and then say, oh, no, you shouldn't cut down a tree in northern British Columbia. When you're living near that tree, though, in the north, and you see how rough people can live, you change your position. You're like, yeah, you know what? If these guys can get a steady paycheck, let's do it. We can keep it clean. We'll worry about that. And then, you hear them talk about the tankers are going to crash. The thing about a tanker is the Americans run by all day long. They haven't had a crash. I think the last one was 2016 that there was a crash, but the big one, of course, was Valdez. Nowadays, though, they got all kinds of systems that are cleaning it up. If you really want to know how easily and how quickly they can clean it up, all you got to do is look at that Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf of America. Excuse me. They got machines for it now. They got devices that cleans it up pretty quickly. But really, what they should do, the First Nations that are there worried about it, is they should tell them they should change, not to say, oh, there's no tankers allowed on our thing. But if you want to sail from here to here, then you have to have a pilot on board that is from our First Nation. That would solve the problem. They can tell them where not to go and where to go. They don't have to worry about any of it because they've now, like, if you understand nautical, when the pilot goes on the ship, the pilot tells it the steering, no matter what the captain has to say. He's the one that drives it. He's the one that tells it. It's done in every port. There's a pilot that brings your boat in, and we've been doing it since the beginning of time. Like, we've been doing it since we figured out how to do this. So, oh, look at this. Red Dog, 1973, 1999, with the, what is that, an emoji? That's fun. I like that. JP Alberta First, $10, said, Schwangster, I can feel your pain. We just had our premier backstab her party members, 2/3 of her caucus, and pull the same crap she did, then let the NDP in to screw us in 2015. Now, I'm thinking JP is not necessarily agreeing with Danielle Smith's desire to sign the MOU. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems like you don't necessarily agree with Danielle Smith's move. From the very second I saw that MOU, let's first establish something. It's not worth the paper that it's written on. Nothing Mark Carney says is worth the paper that it's written on. The man has an entire book talking about climate change, and I haven't seen any action once his banking conglomerate fell apart, everything he wrote in that book was forgotten. However, what is important for Canadians in that MOU, and I don't mean necessarily Alberta specifically, I just mean for everybody, is the suspension of the clean electricity standard, the suspension of the BC tanker ban, and the third one, which has slipped my mind. Nonetheless, look, it was another suspension of another one. Oh, the emission standard for the oil and gas sector. Those three bills, which are part of the 9 that Danielle Smith has been talking about since the beginning, her and Scott Moe and Pierre Poilievre, admitting on paper that those three things are in the way of prosperity, of development of the Alberta processes, of the Alberta products, was a massive victory. That can never be taken away. That MOU could never happen. We could never utilize it in any way, shape, or form. And those three aspects of the MOU will help people in Newfoundland, will help people in Prince Edward Island, because it shows people like Stephen Guilbeault and the Liberal Party that it admits that people like Stephen Guilbeault and the Liberal Party, their policies are actually interfering with the economic development of the country, not just Alberta, but everywhere. I get that people in Quebec are not too worried about the tanker ban, but people in Quebec are probably going to have to worry about emissions caps, or people in Quebec are going to have to worry about clean energy, clean electricity. Now, they have the James Bay project. Isn't that convenient that they could flood out all that land and then say to themselves, oh, your oil and gas is bad? What's ironic about Quebec is they probably don't know this, but the oil comes out of Alberta, goes down into Texas, gets refined in various places in the United States, gets put into that pipeline I told you that the Brookfield owns, the biggest one in North America, gets sent over to Maine, in Maine, they pump it back up into Quebec. Well, Quebec sits there saying, oh, leave your oil in the ground, Alberta. I'm like, just turn that pipe off for a week and watch as Quebec loses their mind because they no longer have heating oil and all the rest of those kinds of things. The only poopy part about what I just described is that the equalization payments that come out of Alberta subsidize some of that oil so that the prices can stay lower in Quebec. Though the prices are pretty high, they are still subsidized slightly. And then, of course, the other thing that Quebec gets is a lot of oil from Irving, who buys all of his oil from the Middle East and none of it from Canada. Like I say him, but the company itself buys all of its oil, and they're based in New Brunswick. So they buy all of their oil from the Middle East, and then they pump it into Quebec, but on the other end of Quebec, not necessarily the Montreal side, but the Quebec City side. So it's not like they're sitting on there going, oh, look, we're living by solar panel and wind power over here. They just want to pretend, and they have the press on their side. It would be a different country. It would be a different temperature if we could get the kind of exposure or the kind of airwaves that these CTV, CBC guys get. I mean, they only get it on TV and they have the radio. But in the radio, like CBC radio in Quebec, it's probably the number one listened to radio station. They are all over that because, in the rural areas on their truck, that's what they got turned on. So, yes, I know it seems like Danielle Smith, going back to you, JP, I know it seems like Danielle Smith did something that goes against your desire to keep the Liberals out of your province and to have the separation happen. However, she did Canada a favor by having the Prime Minister of the country sign a document admitting that 3 of his 9 laws, at least bare minimum, are hampering the development of this country. And that's how we get them off the environmental craziness. Because if you pull the environmental craziness off the list, like Donald Trump did, all of a sudden our economy explodes. And all of a sudden we have houses that are being able to be built. Like one guy can buy a piece of land and just build 6 or 7 houses by himself, like we used to do it. Doesn't have to be a gigantic corporation that's centralized to 2 or 3 little factories in the entire country, like Mark Carney thinks we can pull off. Jehovah Thickness, 3351, which I still think is really funny. $5 says Steve Guilbeault would make a good beatboxer. His stuttering was amazing. I think honestly that his stuttering is a trick. Like sometimes people learn that as a way to disarm you because you somehow feel sympathy for them or you feel a little bit. So it sends the impression that they're, soft and frail and fragile. Now, if you ask Stephen Guilbeault, he'll just tell you it's because English is his second language and that French is his preferred language. And if he talks, because he never stutters when he's talking French. You never hear him going da da da. He flows right through it. I don't think that he's thinking about it. It could be that he's translating it. I just think that he does it as a tactic, as a display tactic. Keep your hands in front of you. Some people stand up straight. Some people move their hands. And he just goes, da, 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 and stutters. Because I've watched him. I have spent a lot of time watching his videos, and it's always the same. But when he stands up in the House of Commons angry, or when he stands up in the House of Commons to confront something the Conservatives said to him, and he used to speak in English, he didn't stutter at all. It's only when he's in these little interviews with the media. If you see him in committee, he doesn't stutter at all. He just goes off, So I think it's a tactic. However, he can go ahead and I would love to see him and Justin Trudeau have a boxing match. That would be amazing. That would I would sell tickets. I would stream that for free. I'd just be like, you know what? We're going to watch Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau have a boxing match. Get your popcorn. That'd be great. That'd just be amazing. I would love, if I had the resources, I would be pushing to set up a debate. Not with the mainstream media, but I would love to see, an hour of Mark Carney trying to debate Pierre Poilievre. One-on-one, head-to-head, no nothing. Not just the two of them and a clock. You know what I mean? No moderator. You have a question. Well, I guess we would have to have, a few questions and the moderator could control the buzzer. But none of this 900 people here and the CBC and the CTV and the Global all trying to put a spin on it. Just the two of them alone in a room, laptops, fine. But, it's going out live and we'll let Canadians decide who's got the skill set that's better. And I think Mark Carney would be in the corner crying. He just doesn't have what it takes. That's why he has these prepared statements. And once he's out of those prepared statements, he runs like the wind. I've watched enough of his, speeches or announcements to see that once he's off the podium, off the teleprompters, and just one of the press asks him a question that he didn't see coming, holy moly, he falls in it. Well, you saw it. Who cares? That's the truth of Mark Carney, right? He talks like the rest of us are just plebs. People suck, dogs rule, $10. These people against Danielle Smith don't understand that she's one step ahead of everybody. She got some of the bad laws and she's paving the way for a pipeline. Conservatives will scrap that tax, build the line. Well, some people, dogs rule. Some people in Alberta want the 51. They want 51. Now, it's not easy. The 51 is not as easy as Donald Trump makes it sound. There is a lot of complications around that. Canada has rules for when you want to leave the country. Just ask Quebec how that works out. You have to have a referendum. You have to have people in the country like the premiers and the provinces to agree. On top of that, you need to be voted in to be a part of the United States. But some people in Alberta they have their hearts set on getting away from Ottawa. They hate the equalization payments. A lot of people hate the equalization payments more than they hate the lack of the job, because the equalization payments, I don't blame them. They're kind of insulting. They don't work evenly, right? They're not done evenly. For example, as I'm sure people, you don't pay provincial sales tax in Alberta because they have money, so they don't charge you provincial sales tax. Before the GST, there was no tax. What you saw in the aisle was what you paid at the till. Now, because they don't charge that, doesn't stop the federal government from calculating their equalization payment based on if they had collected this tax. So they don't collect it, but Ottawa says, so that's like saying, okay, here, we don't collect this tax, but Ottawa says, yeah, but for all the sales you made, you would have earned an additional $1 million. So your equalization payment is now against you earning this extra $1 million. And of course, it's billions of dollars, but I'm just trying to keep the numbers round. One of the things that Alberta is saying is that's not just, knowing full well that Quebec is sitting on top of a huge resource of LNG, a huge resource of critical minerals, and doesn't try to pull any of it out of the ground. Alberta's argument is that their net worth should be, if Alberta's being charged for a tax they don't charge and having to pay for a tax they don't collect, which is just ridiculous. I mean, that's obviously just a cash grab by the Ottawa government. That's because they mismanaged everything. But Alberta's argument is if that's the situation, then Quebec should be, their earnings, how much they have made should be calculated into how much oil and gas, and I don't mean not a lot of oil, but natural gas and other critical minerals that they have access to that they're choosing not to develop, which makes sense. That sounds reasonable to me. Now, people that are like JP who are angry over that kind of treatment, that's why they're upset with Danielle Smith making any deal with Mark Carney. They just want out. Now, the referendum, the steps to separation are much bigger than just the question on the ballot, which I still think all of Canada needs to embrace. I should start a petition to have ballot questions put on the ballots in Canada everywhere. I think ballot questions are an amazing way to gauge what the people on the ground are actually looking for. So, yes, I get that Danielle Smith is pulling it off, and I get all those kinds of things. I hear from all three parties out there in Alberta. You all have very passionate positions, which, having lived in Alberta for many years, I get it. I'm just trying to, make it so that everybody understands what everybody is going through. Now, right now, my biggest problem with Alberta is that the NDP is trying to abuse the system and make all of those vote recalls. Like, we don't have enough problems going on right now that these children are running around the entire province trying to make everybody go back to the polls. Like, what are you on about? Just, get your house in order and there'll be an election in 2027 and you can participate then instead of this foolishness. You see, that's the problem that we have with a lot of our politicians, especially the left side of the aisle. They're not looking to go through on merit. They're simply looking to manipulate the system. They only want to manipulate the system. They don't want to actually, work within the system, inside the confines of the system, and make things better. And you saw he mentioned about the NDP coming into the province. I don't think the NDP has a chance of coming back into that province. I get that, some parts of Edmonton and many parts of Calgary have selected NDP for the provincial levels. But the NDP is horrible with money. They're horrible with their policies. And they're not really going to be doing that well anywhere in this country so long as they continue to spread that message of, DEI. I mean, people are so over DEI. People are over DEI. People are over the environment. We gave it a try. 10 years we tried. It clearly does not work. We need to have merit-based rewards in this country. We need to stop telling ourselves that the techno giants can run around allowing people to slam half of our population because of the way they were, like, you can't have all the hate that goes towards men. That has to stop. Or you have to stop making, either you have to stop allowing the women, you have to censor the women the same way you treat the men who say it, or you have to allow the men to post as like the women post, right? Like, you hear the women say, where have all the good men gone? But show me one video where anybody's saying, where have all the good women gone? Because the second you say that, somebody takes it down, And so to make things balanced, I believe in balance. I believe in one set of rules, not 25 sets of rules, not a different set of rules for you, different set of rules for me. That doesn't mean different conditions don't exist. That just means that there is one set of rules. One set of rules makes it nice and easy for everybody to understand. And the NDP is not about that. They're into 75 sets of rules depending on how you identify in that particular moment. And that's the kind of thing that got us into this mess. So I don't think that they have much of a chance, even with those recall votes. But I mean, I'm a little more skeptical than most people when it comes to that kind of thing. I still believe that sooner or later people are going to snap out of it. Most of the people under 30 are not going to vote for the Liberal Party in the next election. And many people that are supporting the Liberal Party are currently thinking to themselves how good life is living in the United States, because they're down there right now for the wintertime and they're looking around thinking, wow, how cheap food is. When you have people that are on fixed incomes, that kind of thing makes a difference. But we'll see. We'll see what the spring brings. And we're not going to get anything before the NDP picks a leader, for the federal NDP picks a leader. And Alberta is I just feel that Alberta is only at the beginning of their process, not near the end. The big problem that we have right now is British Columbia's, the one fella mentioned that Rustad is resigned. So that's going to cause a little bit of a grievance because that will make room for another one. And then that, because the vote will be split on the conservative side of the aisle, that might give the NDP another run. And then we'll be hearing grievance over the pipeline and grievance over the LNG factory. And I just think that that's enough. It's very selfish of people like Eby to think that the way he lives is how we all live. For him to turn a blind eye to the hunger, the homelessness, the lack of opportunity for people that are under, say, the age of 22 or whatever, people that are just coming out of school. It's very selfish for him to think that the way that he lives is the, You know what's the sad thing about Donnie? You know what's the sad thing about Elizabeth May is she has an Order of Canada. And she is half cut all the time. Sorry, guys. I don't notice all of them going by because it's here and I'm here and I'm still, I'm working out the kinks. But I appreciate all of the comments and everybody, keep talking. because it's fun to see the dialogue. It's nice to see you guys talking amongst yourselves while I sit over here droning on with things that are, well, relevant, but not necessarily, there's no color charts to look at. And why would anyone want to spend money in a province that can pull the rug out right from under you in the middle of a major job? And then Ottawa stepped in and went well over budget to do the job. Well, the Liberal Party loves to go over budget, Marianne, because they can hide money that way. That's the nepotism that you see from the Liberal government. So the fact that went $35 billion over budget was ridiculous. That's what happens when you put too many people in the way, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh no, a blade of grass is going to be bent, so we need $22 million to investigate that, and we have to hire 745 people, all at $55,000 per week, who will never pay for lunch and never have to pay for a place to sleep. And the next thing you know, oh look, it's all been billed to this one particular pipeline, $55 million. Or billion, excuse me. What was it? $35 billion. Ridiculous. I mean, to me, the federal government really only has two jobs, right? You got to protect the standard of living, and you make sure that you don't start any wars. So the standard of living, the economy, jobs, these are the kinds of things that people want. Cheap houses, cheap food, and the ability to pay for it. Most people want to go about their lives and never even think about it. They want to get up in the morning. They want to do their obligation. They want to play their video game, or they want to have, get their nails done, or whatever it is that keeps them happy. They want to sit down and have dinner. Repeat. They're not worried about the rest of it. They just, until the federal government makes these horrible decisions, and now they have injected themselves into your lives in the way that all Marxists like to do, because they feel that you don't have the right to make your own decisions. Michelle Diets, 3362. Hello from Lexington. These people are nuts for $2. I agree with you. They are absolutely crazy. What I'm trying to do is get the people that voted for them. That's the ones I'm reaching for. I'm thinking in my mind, if we can just get them to vote in historic numbers, we can get them out of the way. Now, I don't know that we can ever get Quebec out from under the thumb of the Liberal then Bloc Party, but we should be able to get Toronto out from under the thumb of the Liberal Party. And once we get Toronto out from under the thumb of the Liberal Party, that should be the demise of the Liberal Party. We could have gotten them out if Jagmeet Singh had done the right thing. I don't know why they are so fanatical. Like, I don't understand the logic stream. If you were really trying to solve the problem, the last thing you would be is obstinate. The last thing you would be is, as Julie DeBruzen puts it, ambitious with your targets. You would find a solution that keeps everybody happy. And that's what I think Danielle Smith did for Canada when she got him to sign that, a solution to some of the problems. He thinks DeBruzen thinks she's going to go out there and start to negotiate $1 per ton, which is just going to be hilarious to watch, because Danielle Smith has already she took care of that beforehand, right? The carbon capture and the pricing are tied together in Alberta. So if you invest in carbon capture, you don't have to pay for your tonnage. And like I've said in other videos, when you start to capture your carbon, there will be no tonnage to pay, which means that all of the Liberal Party's fanatical environmentalist segment can just be quiet, go sit in the corner. Now, it's an interesting thing that Carney's got balancing right now. He's got the British Columbia Liberals who are right now scrambling around to try to make sure that they don't lose any more of their seats to the Conservatives, which is not going to happen. The Conservatives are taking a real strides in British Columbia, because who knew people wanted to have good jobs? Then you have the Francophone Liberals who some of them are sitting on the fence just waiting to see which way the penny drops. And other ones are just flat out like, you know what, Carney stabbed us all in the back, which opens up more seats for the Bloc. And then there's Toronto, which is just, I don't know. He's got two of them so far. The guy that was in committee, Maloney, who, if any of you watch my most recent video, you can't even believe the disgusting behavior coming out of that man. but he's from Toronto. And then you have DeBruzen, and then you're going to have whoever replaces Freeland. And so there's still a big, right now it seems at least there's still a big segment of Toronto who will support the Liberal Party, which I kind of wish they wouldn't. But when you live in the downtown, like when you live in those high urban areas, it's easy to live without a car. It's easy. You can take the metro or the subway, depending on where you live in this country. They're both the same thing. You can get on the bus. You can buy a bus pass. You can take the bus 3 blocks, get off, take another bus 3 blocks. You know, like your job is not far away. Your grocery store is not far away. So it's easy to think in your mind. But then you get into the suburbs and you're like, hey, wait a minute. I can't go anywhere without a car. And then once you're past the suburbs, you're like, I got a car for my 14-year-old because they need to get around. Robbie loves books. I like books too. Just watch DeBruzen getting the bruising. Yeah, I was gonna put that in the title. I was like cruising for a DeBruzen. It would, but I'm terrible with the titles. There's a AI stuff out now that Kapuskasing Airport has a carbon pricing scheme. They were ahead of the game. I'm worried about the airports. Carney wants to make them privatized, and that's a bad idea. Because privatized airports means that anybody can just bring something in whenever they want. They never have to, because it's private property. And no, that's a bad idea. Also, when your airports and your mail and your highway system are tied to the strength of your dollar. People don't realize that, but when they look at the development of a country, those are the 3 things they look for, which is why they always come into these poor countries and say, don't worry, we're going to build you an airport. And the country's like, what do you mean an airport? Everybody here rides bicycles. And they're like, yeah, but if we build you an airport, people will then give you more money. It'll increase tourism. And they're like, tourism? Did I mention the bicycles? There's a lot of disconnect. And then what happens is they get this one guy and his, political party to accept it. And that's why that's why you see the repeating, because they're not really trying to solve the problem. They're just trying to make themselves a little bit of money. And they're doing it under the guise of strengthening your economy. Dogs rule. People suck dogs rule. $5. The Conservatives in BC are ex-Liberal Party people. Yeah. Especially even that guy that just got drummed out. No conservative. One BC is the only conservative party in BC. That's why I was talking about the one fella. That was $5. Thank you. People suck dogs rule. He does a pretty thorough breakdown of this Rumstead. I remember in the last election that Rumstead was drummed out of the Liberal Party because he said something that they didn't agree with and he refused to apologize. And then he started this conservative branch. And then it became a cluster of people who all had different ideas. Like in Ontario, the best conservative choice is the New Blue Party. Now, I live in a pretty conservative riding, if I'm honest with you. But I am very disappointed in the way Doug Ford has behaved. Very, very disappointed. I might consider it if they replace Doug Ford, but right now, Doug Ford's gone real quiet, I've noticed. But right now, I am very disappointed with Doug Ford because I feel like he bait and switched. He talked a lot of tough talk and he said a lot of things that conservatives like to listen to. And then once he got his vote, he immediately went into Carney's back pocket and started begging him for money, I guess. I don't know, or giving him opportunities to earn more money. And then, immediately went into the States to check on his businesses because Ford's businesses are all in the States. Michael Dietz, 3362 $2 says Lexington, Michigan, 20 miles north of Port Huron and Sarnia. I love that aspect of Canada that there are. Yeah. Cool. Welcome. JP Alberta First says $10 says a bonus to Alberta independence would be that the NDP would not be in the country. That would be foreign interference. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll give you that. I absolutely would give you that. Now, since you brought it up again, and I know I was talking about it earlier, it's not that simple though. To get out of the country, you have to You have to get permission like that, or that's what the referendums are about in 1995. You could look up the referendum policies of Canada to understand the kind of steps that a province has to go through. Of course, your first hurdle is to get past the ballot question. So Alberta has the ballot question, and that's actually what's happening. Danielle Smith, the Alberta ballot question has existed since the 70s, I believe. And I think it was Ralph Klein. I believe it was Ralph Klein, but don't hold me to it being in the 70s. And the ballot question is great for anybody who doesn't know. Like, you have something that you want people to vote on. It goes onto the ballot, and then if people agreed, then the politician can say nothing. That has to happen. If people disagreed, then the politician doesn't have to respect it. It could be as small, like if you're in your city, it could be like, I want to put in streetlights down here. Or in the case of Alberta, it could be a huge question like, should Alberta separate? So they have to first gather signatures, and those to achieve, they have to have a threshold to achieve the right to put the question on the ballot. And once they have those signatures, then the question goes on the ballot. And if the question is, yes, let's all do separate from Canada, or what's called the 51s, then you would have to get permission from Ottawa, ironically enough. And the referendum question is a difficult thing to match because you need permission from I think you need like 10 premiers to agree. Not to mention, you need to have the vote within your entire province. That would be a referendum or a separation. I encourage anybody who's looking at this problem, especially you, JP, because you're here, to look up the 1995 referendum where the Bloc Québécois was invented, as a matter of fact. This was the second referendum from Quebec where they tried to separate and they couldn't get away with it. And then the Meech Lake Accords collapsed because governments changed. And now they're still going on about it. However, I'm not saying to you that Alberta would have to sit tight for all of that. I'm just telling you what has to happen on paper. Then you can allow the country. So let's just assume you get that far. Alberta separates and becomes their own country. Here's a couple of complications. What money are you going to use? You have to basically build your own money. Now, Alberta is going to have the ability to tie that to a lot of money because they got all that oil. So there will at least be some structure in the money. If we were to say PEI, it would be like, well, we have all these potatoes and we got pretty good fish. And they'd be like, I'm not sure that we can give you, a strong dollar based on that. However, that impacts the banking systems, that impacts the postal systems, that impacts the airports, that impacts the police systems. There's a lot of government at the hospitals. There's a lot to calculate in separation. Now, I appreciate that you're angry and you're fed up. I'm only trying to walk you through this, just walk you through the actual reality of it. Then, let's just say for the sake of argument, you did accept 51. Trump could offer you temporary, he could let you use the American dollar, and there could be things that he could take up temporarily. However, you would still have to have that voted into by the American government. Like there's a vote that would be cast to accept a new state into the United States. So, and that's why some of them are still not that way. Like, what is it? I don't think Puerto Rico's a state. They're just they're part of they're a protectorate or something. I forget. But I'm saying is that it's not always as cut and dry as that. Now, you could go the way of Texas and say we're just going to be fine all on our own. That's absolutely true. Though you wouldn't necessarily be, you're still going to need a port. You're still going to need a way to get the product out of the country. Being landlocked, now that's Alberta's single largest problem right now. However, if they did get into the States, they could maybe build a pipeline into Alaska, which would be hilarious in my mind, because it's not that far from northern BC and southern Alaska touch, right in that straightway, that waterway. And they could literally just drop it like as close to the BC coast as possible, or to the BC border as possible. And those ships would just be sailing by them all day. And every time they went by, they'd be like, oh, there's another $1 million we're never going to get our hands on. Oh, look, there's another $1 million we're never going to get our hands on. That would be really funny, to see how the backlash for people like David Eby then. I don't think that the First Nations have a problem with the pipeline, if I'm honest with you. The last time I looked, and there was 36 of the 40 bands along the suggested route that had already approved it. So is 37 out of 40 and 36 out of 40 enough democratically? It should be. Now, if for whatever reason, for some ridiculous reason, the First Nation says, no, there's got to be 100% agreement. That's just you just got to sit down, you got to talk you hammer it out. It might take you 2 months, but you sit down, you hammer it out, and you get the other 4 bands on. Remember that the first time they were proposing this pipeline, it's been 6 or 7 years, and there's been a lot of hardship in the part of northern British Columbia since then. So there's this distinct possibility that they can get those bands to agree to the pipeline. The proponent is an easy thing. There's already 25 people. Chevron is investing $19 billion in oil development in the United States of America. To get somebody up here to put the money in is easy. That's nothing. That's like, it's that easy. All they really want to know is that they can get the pipeline to the coast. It's kind of one of those, chicken or the egg kind of situations. Who's going to go first? Well, that's why Danielle Smith developed that it's a fund. I forget the name of it, but it's essentially going to lend money. Like Alberta's going to take money and they're going to lend it to the First Nations, and then they're going to take the money back from the pipeline revenue. So they'll give them some and keep some, give them some and keep some until it's paid off, and then they'll just give it all to them. That's going to go a very long distance to improve the situations with the pipeline, because a lot of times what the First Nations is up against is they simply don't have the money. And that's why you hear when Carney addressed the First Nations a couple of days ago, he was talking about how he's investing all of this infrastructure into housing for First Nations who live off reserve and First Nations who live on reserve, because he's desperate to try to convince them that the Liberal Party this time around is going to be there for them. Now, if you watched the Assembly of First Nations when Mark Carney was talking, most of them were like this. They didn't have no time for him at all. It was interesting. JP Alberta first with the $10. We know the process very well. The petition has just been greenlit to start in January. We also have, because they sent it to court, right? Like that was a greasy move. We also have to discuss all of the implications. Nobody here wants to trade one faraway government for another. Well, okay, I hadn't thought of it that way. I only know that many of the people that I talk to about it always say the 51, so they're calling it the 51. I understand that really what you mean is Alberta independence, but it would go a lot easier if the Americans drove a dump truck full of money surrounded by Marines. I promise you that. Now, I wasn't referring to the petition. The petition is only step one. That's just enough to get it onto the ballot. And of course, it was a greasy move for the government, the elections government, to say, no, we got to send the question to the courts to see if it's constitutional. I found that to be really stupid, because now out in Alberta, they're like, oh no, look, we have the opposition is like, the Canada people are like, oh, we have all their signatures ready to go. Yeah, but you've been out on the ground for 2 months ahead of time, so I understand what you're saying. And I agree with you that there's a lot of stuff that is on the working toward separation. I still say that no matter which way it goes, the landlocked issue will be a problem to get the product to the coast. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't have a solution with the First Nations, even if you do separate, right? That's a different question. What I mean is that the prosperity that Alberta is looking for outside of the equalization, and let's be straightforward, keeping the equalization payments puts nearly $20 billion in your coffers every year. $20 billion. That's a ridiculous amount of money. However, you would still have the landlocked concern. In fact, it would be a little bit worse, because now technically you would be trying to run your oil over foreign countries. And that's all I meant. But I know that it's only just beginning. It's in 2027 that the election happens. So it's coming. That's going to be interesting news, and I plan on watching on. Like, I'm going to be covering it as best I can. And JP again said $5. Nobody will invest in a pipeline through BC because of the land claims. Too much risk in losing their assets. Well, you have to get the individual bands to accept it. And the best way to do that is to just offer them a dump truck full of money. It's that simple. Yeah. The land claims that are going on in southern British Columbia are a little bit convoluted. Like, there's a little bit trickiness inside of that. And I could spend an entire 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever it is, again, talking about my position on the First Nations and the land claims and all of this. We're speaking to you from the traditional land of whatever. I mean, I certainly agree that that's going to be something to slow down the development or slow down a proponent coming forward, waving a piece of paper saying we're prepared to get going to build this pipeline. However, the fund that Alberta has set up to loan the First Nations the money to invest in it and therefore have a piece of it, have a cut of it, is a very smart move from Danielle Smith, because now she can circumvent the provinces, right? Now she can simply address each of these. Like I say, I believe it was 40 bands and 36 of them have already agreed because they need the money. She can address them directly and say, listen, we have this process where you can have the money up front to buy a portion of the pipeline that's going to be passing through here. And people, I mean, you're right about the land claim. No doubt, there's no denying that that's a complication. And there's also a complication with the one band going all the way, like they go up and down the coast. So that could be a tricky aspect. However, it's way better than where we were under Stephen Guilbeault and Justin Trudeau. At least there's some movement forward. And now that he has signed an MOU saying that the clean electricity regulations are out of the way, Saskatchewan can breathe a lot easier, who still is not collecting the carbon tax, right? So it's a lot of, there's benefits to move this plan. When I say along the way, what I mean is away from the fanatics of the left government, away from these people who think we should be going hungry and homeless in an effort to appease the volcano spirit of the earth or whatever it is. It's funny how they always talk about these taxes, and they always talk about how, you heard Stephen Guilbeault saying $400 a ton, $300 a ton, $150 a ton. But who gets that money? And how is it that money isn't okay? Like, I'm not allowed to earn money because all of a sudden the environment's got to come first. But when the environment doesn't come first, you got to pay money to the federal government. How exactly does that help the environment? And how come that money is not going back to the people? Why is it going into the hands of people like Mark Carney and Stephen Guilbeault, who have chauffeurs and taxpayer-funded housing and cars and schools, like for their children and all the rest of that? Where's this money going that it's coming out of my pocket? Where's it off to? How come it's not like every time I turn around, they're like, oh, we're collecting this carbon tax and we're actually building a road with it? So that's the kind of stuff that makes me a little bit skeptical of the green scam. I just think that rather than stand in 100% direct defiance of it, we should simply work within their own little rules, like the carbon capture, for example, that manipulates the system to them to the system where they got nothing to complain about anymore. It's like, here, we're giving you what you want, so get out of the way while we get to work. Welcome, JanCore64. I appreciate the membership. And People Suck, Dogs Rule, $2. Making a Killing documentary from 1BC. I saw that. I watched about 5 minutes of it. Marianne Drinkwater, I think it is. Drinkwall. $5. If you get a chance, you should take a peek at the APP. The APP, Value of Freedom, and No Country Can Be Landlocked. That where negotiations step in. That's where negotiations step in. APP. I don't even know what that means, APP. I guess I could look it up now that I got a second monitor. See if I know what I'm doing still. I don't. Oh, look, it opened up in the whole wrong screen. Oh, well. I will put it in, APP, because I'm like a streamer. It says it's the Apple Store. Probably not what you mean. Nope. It's a lot of apps. Google apps, Yahoo apps, Apple, Merriam Dictionary. So if I put in APP landlocked, whoa, that just gives me a whole bunch of apps. again. But then there's the Ontario Area of Employment, which is legislation. Did you mean legislation? Man, I got nothing. There's so many. It's just too much of it. Alberta Prosperity Project. No, okay. So now I get it. I have looked at their website actually, and that's why I know they were having a hard time with the signatures. I have no doubt that he's going to get the signatures that he requires, and I don't know if I still have it bookmarked, but I have absolutely taken a look at the Alberta Prosperity Project. No denying that. I'm not a supporter of Quebec getting all of these ridiculous. No, I don't have it bookmarked still. I don't know. I did do a deep dive into the separation though. That's how come I can tell you what I know right now. Because I did a deep dive, like most of my stuff, so right from the beginning, right? Because they used to try to blame Danielle Smith for being a separatist, right? But because she lowered the threshold for the amount of signatures you required to get the question put on the ballot. But I will take a look at it. Again, maybe there's been changes, maybe there's been improvements. I just don't know that what you're saying about no countries can be landlocked. Like if you were to separate, if Alberta separates, you believe British Columbia is going to all of a sudden just say, yeah, let's have your pipeline. They won't even give it to you now, and of course they can't deny you now because you're part of the country. And of course it's all Mark Carney trying to tap dance, right? Him trying to pretend that he's one thing while he's another thing and all that. We all see it. We all cover it. We know that the Mark Carney government cannot be trusted to tell us the truth. And that Mark Carney is trying to play both ends against the middle because ultimately he doesn't care about Quebec. He doesn't care about BC. He cares about whether or not he can get this money made through Brookfield. And whatever friends he has at Brookfield, he's trying to appease. He's trying to please. He took a real kicking when he was in Britain, and he wrecked their economy. They're still over there holding it against him. And that's something that cares about him more. Like Mark Carney is not a politician, right? He's he's not a businessman. He's an economist. And a lot of his self-worth is tied to how well his ideas are. Trust me, I've known a lot of these kind of guys. His brain is where he ties all of his self-worth to because he's not a very big fella. And, so this is what he's one of these people that thought, well, you might have muscles, but I'm smarter than you. And so when he has a system that doesn't work, he sees that as a direct blow to his ego. He might not care that he can't play basketball, but that his math doesn't work out. Well, that'll send him right over the edge. That's one of the reasons why when you see Pierre Poilievre come after him in the House of Commons about bad math, he always stands up and he's in a much angrier attitude because he's very fragile that way. He's very sensitive to the truth being exposed about his lack of ability, right? I mean, he's an accountant, essentially. He's not a businessman. He's an economist, which is not the same thing at all. And he's worse than that because all he really is a corporate raider. He takes your money and he buys up other companies through the stock market. That's the system. That's the model that they use. So it doesn't matter what you say. You can't stop him because he can purchase it outright with other people's pension plans, which is why he's so anxious to get his hands on the Canadian pension plan because just saying $2 trillion makes him salivate. Scary Mary 7231 gave a whole thing of owls. Great stream. Thank you. $10. Did you get those owls from? I should figure out how to. Can you make your own emojis? I should have all kinds of owls. I like the owls because the owls are a group of owls. For those of you that are watching that don't know, a group of owls is called a parliament. Now we call it, unless you're an American, then it's called a Congress. However, you get the point. It's a group of owls is the collection of the people, of the common people. And I am a firm believer, and I know it's going to come across as very nerdy and very geeky, but that's okay because I am a geek and I admit it freely. I believe that the people are the ones that have the decision, that have the say. If we can get everybody in this country to cast a vote, doesn't really matter which way your vote goes. What we need is for them to cast the vote in the 80, 90%. That will make every single solitary politician in this country quake in their boots because they will know that the people are listening. They will know that their words are being tracked. They will know that people are watching everything they do. That's the single largest reason that they had to get the media first, because without the media, people are going to pay attention to what they're doing. If they weren't closing the market to all the American media that covers Canada, we would be seeing it. The people that are still watching cable television, they would see it. So we, as the people, we are the ones that decide. If Alberta separates, it's the people that they're going to be turning to fix the problems that may arise. If British Columbia thinks that somehow they're going to stop the First Nations from putting a pipeline in, the First Nations will stand together and put it and forward as a people, right? It's always the grassroots. That's why they're so scared of the blue collar, or that's why they're so scared of the middle class, because there's more of the middle class than there is of any. I mean, I get that we're rapidly running out of the middle class in Canada, but the United States' middle class is the reason that the United States has the prosperity that it has. It's the reason that it has the invention that it has. It's the reason that it has the industrialness that it has. Because the people in the middle, the people down here that are not the college educated, that are not the snooty wine drinker, I'm this guy, I'm that guy, or whatever you want to put, like, you know, when you see it portrayed on TV, I'm not saying that people that drink wine are snooty. I'm saying that, you know, you see the way that Hollywood portrays it. That's a very small percentage of the country. That's a very small percentage of people. And behind closed doors, Mark Carney is absolutely one of those. And so I like to put up the owls, because the owls wants me to remind all of you that we're in this together. You know, in the words of Red Green, we're all in this together. Well, I mean, there's a difference between a geek and a nerd. But I don't have any problem, because I fit smoothly into both camps. I am more of a geek than a nerd, though, to be honest with you. And for those of you that might not know, a nerd knows stuff, but he won't really challenge you on stuff. Whereas a geek is like, that's not what the lore says. You can be a geek about almost, you know, like you can be a Star Wars geek because you necessarily know exactly that on Hoth, such and such said so-and-so at this particular time, and that means that this entire third movie is wrong. You know, that kind of stuff. And that's the type of thing that I'm a nerd at. But I'm also pretty good at math, or a geek at, excuse me, but I'm also pretty good at math. And I know now that I'm all grown up, it's like no big deal. But when I was young, I had to fight my way out of many of these situations. So I take pride in the fact that I am a bit of a geek. I don't care anymore. Like, I mean, I never cared then either. I preferred I played Dungeons and Dragons, you know what I mean? Like before it was a video game. Oh, you can imagine. Anyway, that's another story. My point is that the reason that I picked the owls is because I'm geeking right out by giving everybody an owl. And I know YouTube makes it difficult to get a copy of them, but that's okay. We're all in this together. And 5 new people came in today. I remember Donnie did it my first stream. He gave out so many memberships. I was doing owls for like a week. There was so many of them. I was like, man, it's crazy. Which I appreciate. Donnie, don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying, like, you know, sometimes when it wasn't until that point, I was like, oh wow, this could really blow up in my face. Like, what if I got 1,000 in a day? This would be all I'd be doing for 3 days. Roll 20 for a save. Yeah, so you've been there. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I would vote for Michelle Ferrari for Premier of Ontario, actually, now that you say that out loud. I was watching her, though. She's talking about doing, she's working with AI data collection for businesses right now. Like, she did a post, a short the other day. I didn't know she was heading for provincial politics. Provincial politics in Ontario are they're going to get interesting, because the one federal guy is going to run for provincial politics, which will give the Liberals a breath of fresh air. Erskine Smith, I forget his first name. He's got a podcast, like he does a channel, but he's also angry at Carney because Carney kicked him out of he made him housing minister for like 2 weeks and then kicked him out of the cabinet, which of course means, and he had run for leadership of the Liberal Party provincially before he ran for federally. So that would be interesting. But I could like if especially like really I think a lot of people would support the new Blue Party in Ontario because people are very disillusioned with Doug Ford. Doug Ford has done a bunch of theatrics about pouring booze out on the ground because of a couple of companies moving their productivity to different parts of the continent. Rather than like what Doug Ford should have done is like, you know what, let's just cut all their taxes and then they can stay here. But no, can't do that. We got to just take their product and try to turn the whole province against, Crown Royal, right? Which is known globally as one of Canada's best whiskeys. The logic stream was ridiculous. And then when they moved the furniture out of Lindsay, that furniture place, he didn't destroy a table or a chair. And when Stellantis moved, I didn't see him taking a sledgehammer to one of the cars. Probably couldn't afford that kind of. I mean, he's got a lot of money, but he probably didn't think that was a good idea. Now, that would have been an interesting stunt, though. That would have probably played well on the internet. Doug Ford going at it with a sledgehammer on some of Stellantis' vehicles. That would have been funny to watch. People would watch that. But I don't think I think he's lost a lot of the trust that Ontario had put in him to solve the economic crisis. He's spent a lot of money that they can't pay back. He's got a lot of problems with this new housing bill that he signed, which I don't agree with at all. Like, I don't care about the rest of it. You need to fix housing more than you need to pass new legislation to make landlords have more authority. Like, that was ridiculous. So I would vote for Michelle Ferreri, but it would be better if she ran for the new Blue Party than to run for the PC Party of Canada or Ontario, because she could, it would be it's a new step forward out with the old in with the new. Like I say, the Liberal Party is going to come in very, very reinvigorated in the next election because of the destruction that Doug Ford has so far, or his lack of productivity, and the fact that he cozied up so tight with Mark Carney. I mean, the man was, it's kind of gross to watch, to see how the bromance that sprung up between those two. Now that when he threw Doug Ford under the bus over the commercial, though, I haven't heard much from the two of them. So she's doing a lot of stuff. I agree with you. If we're still talking about Michelle Ferreri, she's got, like I say, I watched a short from her talking about how she's collecting this AI information to help people understand what's going on for polling and all of that stuff. And she's very active with her social media right now. Much more like if she'd have been that polished with her social media when she was running as a politician, she probably would have done better in the next election, or the past election, I mean. But I could see that like people would support her as a provincial running for the province. I just think that right now anything that's going to be tied to Doug Ford is going to be fairly poisoned. And when I look around, because I'm not going to vote for the Liberal Party, you can forget it, but especially not the Ontario Liberal Party, those people are crazy. But when I look around for who I could support, this new Blue Party, though, they're very small. They don't have a lot of representatives across the province. They seem to have they seem to be saying the kinds of things that I agree with. Now, the issue that we have in this country, especially in Ontario, everybody talks about Alberta and the oil, or they talk about British Columbia, but Ontario needs to get their steel industry up and running, and the best way they can do that is to build ships. And we know Algoma just lost 1,000. What's left, what a lot of people are overlooking, is that Ottawa knew those 1,000 jobs those layoffs were going to come. When Ottawa handed them the $400 million, they said, here's $400 million if you fire 1,000 people, and if you specifically do it in the coke sector, because the Americans have got Trump just passed a bunch of laws protecting and revitalizing the coke industry in America. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a carbon powder that comes off that they add to iron to make it steel. I don't mean the stuff that grows in Bolivia. I mean, it's called coke. That's what they call it. So you add it to iron to make it steel, and they fold it in, and it's supposed to be pretty carbon intensive. And so they tried to make that electrical one in Algoma where they didn't have to use any of that product. So they laid off that segment, and then they gave them this money to help them revitalize. What they should have done is take that $400 million and invested it into a shipyard, because the shipyard is one of the single largest solutions to our problems, especially when it comes to the steel industry. We also could be making drones. We could be making tanks, armored carriers, rather than send big, gigantic checks which is ironic. Here's what we're doing. We're sending these monies to Ukraine, which is right now in the middle of a corruption scandal. So I'm not sure how that's going over. They're taking big pieces out of it, and then they're taking what's left of this money, whatever makes it, filters its way down, and they're buying Czech-made weapons, or they're buying German-made weapons, or the real funny part is they're buying American-made weapons. So we're sending money to Ukraine to buy American-made weapons with Canadian dollars, while we tell Canada that we're in a trade war with the United States as they sell us their weapons, which we then give to Ukraine. So we have an ability to revitalize these processes. We have an ability to save many of these industries. We could easily switch over one of the Stellantis plants into making armored vehicles, or drones or tanks or anything, whatever people need. What again we don't have is the political will. I believe that there are big sections of the industry that Mark Carney hopes to fail, so that he can bring in his investment money from Brookfield and then revitalize whatever happens to be the industry, but only all of the benefit going to him and his friends, not to the Canadian, not to the blue collar. All of the benefit going to him and his friends. The next thing they'll start to do is claw back on the union rules, right? That's the next step. Mark Carney was laying off people that are in the private, public union, whatever it's called, PCSA, Canada Public Service Union Association. He was laying them off before the budget was even signed, because he doesn't. There's no large corporation, no industrialist, no anybody who cares about. They don't like unions. Unions means less money in their pocket. Jancor64 sent 1 Canadian Shield gift membership. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, I don't know about Doug Ford's political chances, but I know that saving the province we can do without Doug Ford. And if Michelle Ferreri wants to run to the leader of the Conservative Party, I could probably see my way around helping her, like supporting her in my meager, feeble way. Oh, man. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it dropped again. I've been at it for a little while tonight. Am I back? Let me have a 1 if I'm back. Not back yet. Oh, good. Thanks. I'm back. You just get this black screen, and then there's a little button that says reload. And I'm like in the middle of a sentence. I was like, rude. I'm in the middle of a sentence. Well, planting trees is a good job for some people. What they leave out of planting trees is it's not like you go out, you're in the middle of the woods for, let's call it 2 months. You're living in camp, and it's not like I'm going to go to my apartment and have pizza and ice cream and then have a nice good night's sleep, and then I'll get up in the morning, have a shower, and I'll go back to planting trees. You're out in the middle of the woods for long periods of time, and that makes people very unhappy. Like, they can't handle it after certain amounts of time. Even people that do it for high-paying jobs only do it for a couple of weeks at a time. And when you're doing it for a high-paying job, they can afford to fly you in and out. But when you're doing it for tree planting, there's not a lot of money in it. Now, Ontario has had a rule for a long time. For every 1 tree they cut down, they have to plant 2. Of course, the other complication with tree planting is that when the ground freezes, it's nearly impossible to plant a tree. So the Liberal government saw that there wasn't going to be any return on that 2 billion trees that they promised to plant. And that's why that quietly went away, because they couldn't see a way that they could line their own pockets. Now, I agree with you that tree planting is a great idea, that we should be turning that into an industry as we cut down the trees to make lumber cheap to build the houses. However, right now I was on the topic of saving the steel industry in Canada, especially in Southern Ontario. And one of the things that we need to do is to develop other products with our steel, namely military equipment and ships. We need every ship. We have the longest coastline in the world. And we got, like I always joke, we got 14 guys in kayaks
who are trying to defend the longest coastline in the world from the submarine. A nuclear powered submarine can stay under the Arctic for, I don't know, a half a year. And you're like, well, we're trying to build submarines. Yeah, we're trying to build one of the submarines we're trying to build, like that's got a bid, the German one. It's partially electric, but it claims that it can stay underwater for 3 weeks at a time. Now, I don't know if that is affected by pressure or water temperature. I don't know that kind of stuff. I just started to have a look at it. And though from what I've seen so far, the Korean one seems like the better deal. I still say that we should be building our own. I still say that we could convince Korea to come here and build one if we had the facilities to build one, to teach us how to do it, right? Finland can teach us how to build icebreakers. Germany can teach us how to build. Americans can teach us how to build. All we need is the facility. If we build it, they will come. And if we're giving out $400 million to the steel industry, well, we could give it another $400 million to build a deep water port or a shipyard on the Lake Ontario. Now, I know Donnie already said he doesn't want it up near his place, but we got to figure out something. And he lives up where they manufacture the steel. So in my brain, it's a great spot to put it right there. And then you simply sail the ships out to St. Lawrence River, right into Halifax, where you christen them and all the rest of it. And the next thing you know, we got these ships covering our longest coastline. Now, big sections of our coastline are frozen, so we need to have icebreakers. And while we're up there, we can keep Churchill wide open. And you see how I have thought my way through these issues. The problem is right now that we don't have the industry, because the Liberal government thinks bending a blade of grass is somehow going to harm our future. Meanwhile, our present is terrible. So I don't see how our future is going to get any better when our current situation is horrid. Maybe it's just me. Maybe you guys can see how it could be better, though I doubt it. Yeah. Forestry in Northern Ontario. Yeah. As you worry about whether or not the tree's going to fall across the road, in your truck. But the forestry industry in Northern Ontario is good. Again, it just lacks leadership, right? I mean, how many of the roads do you travel on that weave like a river because there's no investment in the infrastructure. Unlocking the North is part of the thing that we need to do in this country. And I've known that for many years. It's just recently that I've started to talk about it more, because I believe that we need to spread our population out. Again, if you build it, they will come. And, I know I get that from the movie The Field of Dreams, but it transfers really well. If we build these processes, if we put in place these industries, the individuals who need the jobs will come that way. The Liberal government is talking about how people making $200,000 or more or not the Liberal government, excuse me. The Conservatives are talking about how people making $200,000 or more have fled the city of Toronto. Well, I'm pretty sure that if I went into downtown Toronto and said, hey, listen, come up north and you can have this little apartment to live in, but the job will be there for you the very next morning after you unpack your bag. Those people would come. The 20-year-old men would come, and then where the men go, the women will follow ultimately. And once that happens, the roads get built, the schools get built, the hospitals get built, the economy generates. Now, I know people living up north thinking, have you lost your mind? I don't want any of them people around here. I like living with the birds. I'm good. I don't want anybody. I like my neighbor being that far away. I'm good. I see him once a year when he helps me with my driveway. I know. I'm just trying to think, I'm tired of Canada being so fragile, right? I mean, all Donald Trump did was lay tariffs down on everybody around the world, and look at how badly we're taking a hit. All the while, everybody comes into our country and treats it like it's a gigantic bulk shopping store where they can just grab up big giant pieces of copper and raw ingots of this and raw development of that and unrefined oil, and they just take it back to their own country and they do well and they make improvements. Meanwhile, we're sitting here thinking to ourselves, geez, I wish we had somebody in charge of our country that would help us solve these problems. And I think in my mind, I agree with you. It would be great if we had someone in this country to help us solve these problems. But we have to, in my mind, we have to get people to realize the problem exists
where the problem exists, right? And right now we can see, all of us in this channel can see that the problem exists with the Mark Carney government, with the liberal government, with the far left ideology trying to make us all live like we were living back in, 600 AD, when there was no roads and no sneakers and none of that stuff. We're all scratching and existing, living in, burning dung in the apartment and all, or in the house and all the rest of it. So we have to make people understand that especially these people that say, I don't follow politics. And I'm like, you know what? Politics lives every day inside of your life. So you need to start to pay attention to these things. And that's one of the reasons that I started this channel. I should make a trailer to talk about it, but I keep slipping. I have a list. Woohoo! I've written the list. It's a start. All right, guys, I've talked my face off. I appreciate all of you coming to see me. I really, really do. I'm going to pack it in now because, well, it's nearly midnight and I feel like it's a good time. We've had a good time. I will make a stronger effort, and hey, you know what? You could leave me comments either here or in the, you work in auto manufacturing, crypto? I didn't know that. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Hootin' Putin. That's a funny name. So I'm thinking though that I might do something for, like, on Christmas Day. I might do a stream of something. I don't know, whatever movie I can play, or I'll figure out something. But I'm just letting you know that probably on Christmas Day I will be doing a live stream, and I'm just making the announcement now. I am, however, going to pack it in for the night. I want to thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you next time.